Vestiges After Dark is a philosophical speculation program sponsored by the Holy Nicholean Catholic Church, an independent Catholic church inspired by the diversity of early Christianity and in communion with the Old Catholic Church. Presiding Bishop Bryan Ouellette presents perspectives on esotericism, metaphysics, philosophy, psychology, paranormal research, theology, spirituality, religion, and Catholicism. We are not affiliated with the Church of Rome. Our discussions of Catholicism are broader than, and distinct from, the Church of Rome. The views and opinions expressed are those of the individual participants.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever the case may be. For all of you listening out there across the crazy planet Earth, welcome to Vestiges After Dark. And I am your host, Bishop Bryan Ouellette, coming to you live from the deep woods of western Georgia on this June 16th, 2026. Well, we've made it to the end of season 13. Can you believe it? This is the season finale for another winter, spring completed. And we are going to cover the topic of esoteric Christianity through the lens of non-dogmatic Catholicism. That's tonight on Vestiges After Dark. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the season finale of Vestiges After Dark. Once again, I am your host, Bishop Bryan Ouellette, here with my co-host, Jamie Wolf.
Good evening, everyone. It's kind of hard to believe we're here already.
I know. Well, we're actually 2 episodes short because of the technical issues we had at the beginning of this season.
Yep.
I think we finally have all of that figured out. We now know that it was an IP problem all along within the software, and that just wasn't made clear to us at any point.
Of course not.
It took a lot of fighting it out with AI and quite a few vulgar words to actually get to the point that we now understand what happened. But we're good now.
You gave some data center a run for its money.
I know, right?
Prompts you did. With
I know
AI.
they're going to hate me for it.
But
too.
you did figure it out.
I did
using AI. So
it was AI. It really was. I mean, it was the only thing that had the answer. So we're grateful that we got it worked out, and I think we're probably good going forward into next season, because I'm not going to forget to check that one thing. Is that one thing I never checked that now you have to check every single time, and updates and various things can change it. Before we get started tonight with questions from the ether, did you see the David Grush, what his statement was?
I know that they've had a new release, but I'm not caught up on my UAP saga.
What he is currently saying is that we have definitive proof. It's just up to the White House to release it.
Oh, of biologics?
But he actually specifically said of multiple species of biologics, ranging from bipedal species to sentient plasma species. I mean, that's really wild stuff for somebody of his...
So we're basically somewhere between Star Trek and Futurama at this point. You know what? Just release it.
Well, I'm telling you right now, the plasma-based sentient beings are not doing anything for the people that think they're all demons, because that just further reinforces the idea of it being like, oh, it's got to be an incorporeal angel then.
I've never been a fan of that theory. It does not make sense.
There's a lot of Catholics that are saying it.
I realize that more and more every day.
Yep.
Coming across the feed after what happened to Monsignor, was it Rossetti in D.C.?
I'm not sure the name. You might be right.
I don't want to get the name wrong. Anyway, a priest was removed from his office in D.C., I believe it was.
I'm not sure the name, but...
For his speakings on his theories. But, yeah, I had no idea.
He was an exorcist.
Yeah, I had no idea it was that prolific in the Catholic faith.
It's not supposed to be, but I think, as I've said before, I think the volume of recent converts in the last few years from more evangelical or non-Catholic traditions have brought some of that mentality to the church.
Bleed over.
I mean, that's not all cases, because you would think an exorcist who's been established in the church for a long time would know better, but they're teaching this stuff, and it's very dangerous, I think. But ironically, I find myself in agreement with Catholic Answers, because they're on our side of the fence with this one.
Well, every once in a while, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But hey, look, I mean, they're only teaching, and I've only taught what the church, what the magisterium has taught on this. So
I will give them that.
Anybody that's teaching that, if they're claiming that it's a Catholic position, no, that's a personal opinion.
Yeah.
Because that is not the official teaching of the church.
Which you're allowed to have.
I mean, you're allowed to have it, but I think it becomes a bit problematic when you can cause unnecessary fear or anxiety within the foundation of the faith. Christians are really called to be stronger than that. So I think it's dangerous for a priest to teach such a thing.
It's just like the new thing now is Steven Spielberg?
Oh, the Disclosure? Yeah, we're going to go see it tomorrow, actually. We're going to go see it tomorrow. Yeah.
Full report, yeah. The timing's
a little suspicious.
It's not going to shake my faith. I got news for you guys.
No, I don't see why it should.
Your faith. You never had any faith to begin with.
But if you got priests out there teaching...
That becomes a problem.
That it's demonic, and that this is like the end times, they're going to be Antichrist, it's a great deception.
It's so important to use your own discernment.
I mean, that could lead to... faith problems.
Yeah.
It could, particularly because it's a question for science. It's a question for science. It's not one for religion.
Correct.
And if it is true that there's intelligent life and it's been visiting us and there's multiple species and all these things that are being claimed, if any of this turns out to be definitively true, then what that's going to do is, because people will cling so tightly. I was going to say harshly, but so tightly to their worldview, that they're not going to know how to deal with it, because that's going to be the greatest scientific discovery of all time.
It will put a lot of brains on lockdown.
Yes. And I don't think, the church needs to sort of be the instrument to usher in this new way of thinking rather than, people trying to create fear mongering and all these other things around it. So I think it's going to be an interesting thing, but it's not going to help matters. It's not helping matters with disclosure if people are still demonstrating very clearly that they're not ready for it by thinking that, scientific discovery's got to be demonic.
As a society, no, I don't think we're ready mentally.
It might be happening whether we're ready or not.
Those of us that are a little more open-minded and grounded are like, yeah, bring it. Come on.
Bring it on.
Why are we waiting?
Bring it on and bring it on, right?
Yeah, bring it on and bring it on.
Joining us from Australia, we have Father Chris Yates. How you doing tonight, Father?
I'm doing all right. I'm minded. Jamie said, the real phrase is a stop clock is right twice a day.
There you go.
Because actually a broken clock can just never be right.
That's right.
Fair enough.
So no. I think it was quite useful. I think your characterization was the correct one.
Yeah.
Also, I just put in the group chat: priests are just priests.
That's true.
Like,
just men. Yep.
Priests are indispensable when it comes to receiving the sacraments of the church. But the Pope doesn't often make infallible statements, even if you accept that he can. Priests definitely cannot make infallible statements.
No.
So
thank God for that too.
So I am a priest. I'm not slagging off something I don't inhabit, but I'm only a priest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's nothing wrong with being only a priest, right?
Yeah. No.
I get into this to only be a priest, so look out.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Yes, I'm fighting that one off as we speak.
Good luck. Joining us from Tennessee, we have April Narad. How you doing tonight, April?
I'm good. I'm like Jamie. Just bring it. I want to meet these aliens.
I know. I mean, I want to sit down.
Show me the money.
Play some chess.
Well, one species is supposed to be feline, if I'm not mistaken.
That could be fun.
I'm going to be talking to my cats a little bit more.
They're already here. They're already here.
Yeah, they've already been. Yeah. I see the way my cats look at me when they think I don't notice.
Look,
Spies.
I love scientific discoveries, particularly new and life-changing ones. Those are always interesting. So I'm all for it. I'm ready for it. And, I don't think, here's an exorcist saying absolutely, definitely, positively not demons.
If they show irrefutable proof, we going to be getting some good scotch.
Oh yeah.
Cigars.
Oh yeah. We'll have to we'll up it to the 40-year-old range.
Yeah,
How about that?
We're gonna have to go big.
Yeah, let's go big or go home. Yeah. All right, let's get started with questions from the ether tonight. April, what do you got for us?
All right. First question was from me, and it was a follow-up from our discussion last week about the abortions.
Okay.
And so my question is, if you choose to allow the child to come to term, is that not the same as a mother choosing to be murdered and or committing suicide? Those are also sins.
I'm going to, before I answer this, I'm going to say, no, there is not one thing that caused more controversy from our little 30-second shorts than last week's discussion on abortion. Yeah, I had to turn comments off on TikTok just because TikTok was producing the worst vitriol I've seen. Facebook wasn't too bad. A little bit on YouTube. Instagram, not at all. But on TikTok, it was just pure vitriol. Clearly people that don't follow me, don't follow what I do, don't understand.
Watch the whole podcast.
Didn't watch the show, making assumptions and everything else. And I want to make it very, very clear.
They are zealots. They're zealots.
They truly are.
Want to listen.
They truly are.
But
right. They were talking to me like, I don't get to make decisions for people, and I said,
you're not.
lady, first of all, if you actually watched my show, you'd know I'm a libertarian, which makes me politically pro-choice. It does. And the second thing is, you got to remember there's a difference between being pro-choice, which is a political designation, and being anti-abortion, which is a moral religious one. And I have always held that it is the job of the church to teach morality, not the government.
Correct.
So if people want to do immoral things, I don't think that a free society is at liberty to stop them. But I will say it is up to the church to teach what is correct behavior. And that's all we were doing last week. That's all I ever do from week to week. I am very, as far as my libertarian leanings are politically, I believe in live and let live. You do you, I do me. I don't want you influencing my life, and I don't want to influence yours. But as far as if we're going to talk about what it means to be Christian, well, that's a whole other discussion, because I have a different obligation to that than I do to secular society. So I just wanted to make that clear, just in case any of those people from TikTok were listening or are listening right now, because we are streaming right now on TikTok, and I want to make it very clear. Yes, it is possible, even a Catholic bishop, it is possible to be politically pro-choice and still be very anti-abortion on a moral level, because I teach on morality. That is my expertise. I don't teach on government. I mean, other than the fact that I want it out of my life.
In fairness, this is, you know, and to show that this is allowable within the life of the church, this is where we disagree. You know, because you could make, from my opinion, from my point of view, even though I lean libertarian, definitely, you could say the same thing about murder. You know, so we shouldn't have any laws against murder because it's a moral teaching.
Well, yeah,
so,
but the problem is everyone agrees on what murder is. No one, we do not all agree on what abortion, if abortion qualifies. That's the difference. You know, no one denies that if you go and you take a gun and you shoot someone in cold blood, that's murder. Not one person, liberal or conservative, is going to think that that's not murder. But
hang on. Unless you ran a health fund. And you were walking through New York and someone shot you from behind. Yeah. And all of a sudden that person's now a hero.
That was an assassination. Yeah.
So I'm not so sure that's true. I mean, the law reflects
you might call a person a hero, and I mean you might be able to say that there's different categories that qualify as what is murder, but you know, okay, let's make it more simple. Let's just say a home invasion. Some guy just breaks into someone's house and takes a semi-automatic gun and just, you know, shoots all of the family members. I mean, I think everybody would agree that that's murder. That's a clean-cut one. Abortion is not in that camp, unfortunately. I mean, do I think it's murder? Yes, I do.
So do I.
You know, but
so that hence why we're allowed to disagree, by the way.
Yeah,
of course. And I accept the nuance that you're introducing. Of course, that's a reality.
Yes.
The fact that people think differently about a human being in the womb than they do from one outside of it, I acknowledge that is true. Yeah. Obviously, for me,
and that's where the difference is. If we could have irrefutable agreement that this was indeed a human being that falls under the rights of human beings, if we had absolute agreement on that, you know, then I don't think we'd have an issue of abortion. It wouldn't even come up. We wouldn't have to get into the morality of it, because there wouldn't be any discrepancy in how the society at large looks at it.
It explains why such the pushback on social media, like Twitter. What's it called? I don't even use it. TikTok. Sorry. Yeah. It explains the pushback because in order to arrive at the point where where the clarity is there for all to see, you know, people don't want that. because it's the same reason people don't become religious. It's because it requires a sacrifice. It requires something of you. And so people are going to push back in the direction of things that make their lives easier to indulge their own appetites rather than to sacrifice something. So that's why you get the pushback on. So that's why, for me, I'm going to keep pushing that, because I believe that it's true, and it's why the Catholic Church isn't going to change its teaching on it. It's why Pope Leo heroically goes to the most left-wing Spanish government that's ever existed, goes into their parliament and tells them that abortion is wrong.
Yeah, and honestly, there's really nothing wrong with a church leader going into
and he's not a legislator. That's correct.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a different matter. Yeah. But when you use the church, particularly in the United States of America, where there's a very clear distinction between, you know, what is secular and what is not secular, I think you run a dramatic risk of compromising the nature of freedom when you use the church as a vehicle through pushing a worldview. that has a moral ramification. And right now, whether, the argument,
that's what the church is.
yeah, right. But not as a vehicle for the state. I don't think it should be something
Sure.
that is used because again, as I've used this example before, I don't want something like what's happened in the UK, for example, where the entire country is being overrun by Islam, to the point that, hey, one day maybe Sharia law will take a footing there, and now they start telling, European English citizens how to live their lives according to Muslim values. I would not want that happening at all. So I look at it in the same light. I understand that there are people in the United States of America that want nothing to do with the church, hate Christianity. They're not compatible with it. And you know what? We don't want them. Stay over there. That's fine. However, I can understand that they don't want us telling them how to live their life or how to make decisions and compromising what they see as their freedoms. I don't want to be standing in the way of that for them. I don't want my religion to be something that they can target for that. Do I teach what's right? Yes, I teach what's right, but I don't push it legislatively. And I think that's where the line gets drawn for me, particularly here in the U.S. because of the fact that is, I understand that separation of church and state isn't what people think it is. It doesn't mean that the church can't influence the state. It's that the state can't interfere with religion. It's really to protect religion, not so much to protect the state.
Right.
However, that being said, I still think it's a good divide to keep in their own respective categories and leave each side alone.
I'm at risk of turning the show into something else, so I'm going to stop soon. But
we haven't even gotten to the question yet.
I know. But
How important the subject is.
But I think it's interesting because there's sort of a paradox going on, because the principle of the separation of church and state, which I agree with too, by the way. I mean,
right.
I was a priest of the Church of England, and the state has destroyed the Church of England, right? So absolutely, what you just said is right. But here's the paradox: the separation of church and state is a principle that can only subsist within an overall Christian framework. And that because let me tell you what I mean by that. And a lot of people misunderstand this when I say it. What happens absent Christianity being the default, even if people are not particularly religious or bothered about the church or don't even know and believe in God. I grew up in a culture where the default was even atheists were Christian atheists, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
Right. We no longer exist in that world. Well, you might do in America, but we don't do anywhere else. We don't do in Britain or Australia. Here's the problem: the state is creating its own religion. Yeah. And now that is church and state. It's not the Christian church. It's whatever this new religion is. I'm calling that church. Okay. That's the bit I miss out, and people misunderstand what I'm saying. That church and state is one and the same. And so you've actually already got the cudgel of legislators forcing you to believe a religion. And I'm loath to mention this topic, but the easiest one to bring up is, and it's going on in Britain and to a lesser extent in Australia, although it's growing in force, is all of a sudden we have speech police. And so, if a woman says, I don't want a man competing in my rugby match, she all of a sudden get arrested because that transgresses the religious beliefs that the state has now enshrined in what it. So it's sort of getting to what you were saying about if you ended up with Muslims taking over and imposing Sharia law. But so this is my issue. Absent Christianity, the state creates its own religion, and that is enforced by the state in the same way it was when the early followers of Jesus were hamstrung because they wouldn't offer incense to Roman gods.
Sure, which is all
church and state.
And I agree completely, which is all the more reason why I think the separation has to be immutable. It has to be immutable on both sides of the fence now. Even though it was designed to protect one over the other, I think it has to be absolutely separate for both sides.
I'm saying it can't be now because the secular religion is political.
It's too late.
So, I don't know what to do about that.
The only thing you can do about that is vote libertarian. That's the only thing you can do about that, and people don't want to do that.
I am a member. I am a member of the Libertarian Party in Australia. I mean,
see, the reality is that, you know, whether you vote Democrat or Republican, whether you're a conservative or a liberal, both parties want to control aspects of your life. Both want, and when you really weigh them, it's almost equal. It's just different values, different priorities, but both are wanting control.
Both.
Yeah.
We end up getting both.
Well, we end up getting both.
You know,
yeah.
The Reds get in and they do their control. Then the Blues get in, they do their control.
Exactly.
You end up with more and more and more control. So you don't need to persuade me on that.
Exactly. So all the more reason why I always default to whatever provides the most freedom, even if it provides freedoms that I find reprehensible, it has to be protected. I have to protect reprehensible freedom in order to protect all freedom. There's no other way around it. It's kind of like when Tracy put up, we had a little bit of the quick talk about this upstairs before the show, and Tracy made a fantastic point. It's the same thing with the Second Amendment. You know, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, just restrict all guns because, you know, criminals can get them and kill people with them. And the fact of the matter is, we have to allow, in order to be able to have the right to bear arms, we have to allow the fact that sometimes the wrong people are going to get a hold of them. That's part of freedom.
Freedom equals risk.
Yes.
You know, and so, I mean, look, I should, you've actually just named the difference between America and everywhere else, and why perhaps I'm right to be more concerned in Australia than you need to be in America.
Sure, yeah.
We don't have a First Amendment and we don't have a Second Amendment.
That's true.
And so for me, this is a real, like, instant danger. Because as soon as legislation's passed in Australia or in the United Kingdom, it's, in a sense, total.
You're under a much greater existential threat with every new issue than we are because of our constitutional protection.
The safety valve used to be the monarch, actually.
Yeah.
But what's happened throughout the 20th century, the powers of the monarch were softly, you know, were not used. I mean, you know, it's heresy to criticize Queen Elizabeth II, but actually she was wrong not to intervene more, because that, in a sense, was our First Amendment, right?
Yes, right.
And once that stops, you know, once they're literally only a ceremonial head, you know, they should be largely that, but once they're only a ceremonial head, where's the safety valve? Well, there isn't one, and that's why you're seeing people riot in the streets in Belfast and London. I mean, it's...
Yeah, see, I think
anyway,
that...
I've derailed things. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean
to. No, you're fine, because it's actually really a lot of food for thought that we can maybe take into the summer specials as well, because, I mean, I've thought about this.
You should be very grateful for your Constitution.
Yeah, well, see, the Constitution is sort of like our monarch. You know,
is.
That's the difference between America, again, and you know, the European system is that we never had a monarch. We did everything we could to get away from that. But
you did once.
Yeah. Well, not as Americans, though. I mean, it was more like, you know, colonists, perhaps. But as far as, like, the Constitution is our replacement for that, became our protection, whereas the monarch was your protection. And what you guys did is you got rid of the power of your monarch without putting a constitution in place to protect the people, and that's where you're at right now. I really think that's why Europe is in such crisis. And yeah, Australia wouldn't be too far behind if they're not careful. They could very much end up the same way. It's kind of scary to think about, but you do need to have something. And so yeah, I'm all for it. It's like, I do think that I don't think a constitutional monarchy would be great for Americans, but I do think Europe needs it. I do. I really do. And I think it needs a more powerful one. I think you need a little more than a constitutional monarch. I think you need to go back to where the king actually can do something, you know?
Well, that's the irony. He actually can. It's just that it's fallen into disuse. It's a bit like, you know,
bring it back. Bring it back, because you need a protection. You do.
But it's like, you know, in rugby league, any rugby league fans, especially Australians, are big rugby league fans.
Yeah.
You still have scrums in rugby league, right?
Yes.
Like they do in rugby union.
Yes.
But by convention, they don't push anymore. Like in rugby union, it's they go for it and try and make ground, you know.
Yes.
In rugby league, they don't by convention, but the rules say you can. They just don't.
They don't.
So
bring it.
I'm
he needs to exercise his power.
Start pushing.
Yeah. Tell him to start pushing his power. Yeah, I always felt they were really in control anyway. All right, April, let's ask the question again, because we're probably so far. I know what the question is, but just for the sake of the audience, we've gone so far off the deep end here. Let's hear it again so I can answer it this time.
Okay, so the question is, if you choose to allow a child to come to term, is that not the same as the mother choosing to be murdered and or committing suicide, which are also sins?
No, it's neither murder nor suicide in that particular case, because what you're talking about here is that a person is faced with a critical medical situation, and we are not, and this might be surprising to some people, but we're not morally compelled to seek treatment. We're not. A person can morally say, I don't want treatment for this terminal illness. Or we can say, yeah, do whatever you can to save it. We're only required to, at least from the standpoint of the magisterium, is to not do harm. But as far as like what a person deems as appropriate medical intervention is really up to the conscience of the individual. So it's actually the opposite. And I gave an example to you on the network about Saint Gianna, who was pregnant with her fourth child. Doctors discovered a tumor. She's a contemporary saint. Doctors discovered a tumor in her uterus. And she had several medical options that were presented to her, one of which was a hysterectomy, or another that was treatment that would likely have endangered the child. Okay. She chose the conservative surgery, so she still opted for medical intervention, but said that if it came down to her life or the baby's, that they need to save the child, which is exactly what ended up happening. And the church canonized her in 2004 for this. That was not considered murder because she wasn't trying to die. She wasn't trying to kill. It wasn't suicide. She wasn't trying to end her life. She was already in a medical crisis and receiving treatment, and decided to give her life for the sake of the baby, which is not completely.
I remember it happening.
Yeah, I do too. And I'll be honest with you, it's not unlike Christ, because I mean he gives his life for our sake, So it's a very Christian thing to do. Martyrs have done this. Not Padre Pio. Saint Maximilian Kolbe.
Oh yeah,
a great example of someone who gave his life for the sake of another. Okay, so that's perfectly fine, because it's not murder is the involuntary, intentional killing, the taking of a life of another person. That is
voluntary. You mean not involuntary?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Voluntary, not the. I'm speaking in reverse now. Not the involuntary taking. It's like, for example, if this is an involuntary death, you're not choosing to die. It just is a consequence of what's going on with you medically. Same thing with war. Killing people in war is not murder. Okay, that is not murderous acts. Now, doesn't mean that murderous acts can't happen within context to war, but fighting a war is not murder, not by the moral standards of the church. This is something I had a hard time explaining to people on TikTok, which is why I just said, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to just turn off comments, and then maybe we'll come back to it when people can actually act like adults and have an intelligent conversation. But right now, they're not ready for an intelligent conversation.
On TikTok.
What's
smart
that?
people aren't on TikTok.
I know, and
adult smart people aren't on TikTok. That's what I won't have it. I mean, sorry, I'll not say what I want to say because TikTok will take you off.
That's fine. I mean, do me the favor, kick me off. But my point is with TikTok. Okay, they weren't willing to have an intelligent conversation. They could not understand the difference between making a moral determination, making a philosophical determination, making a political determination, making a scientific or healthcare determination. These are not always the same thing. Okay, now it does sometimes seem that people, because they're so categorical in their thinking, and as a categorical thinker will be, try to lump it all into something that's convenient and easy to think about. But the reality is these don't neatly fit into their own unique packages, and which is why the example that we talked about last week that dealt with, can a woman who's dying, have an abortion? Well, that's where I was even a bit confused by it, because the language that was being used was not compatible. And the interesting thing is that the document, what was the document again, Father? Do you remember? The one that talks about,
I can find it.
Look it up.
Yeah, he mentioned
that came out in 1995, which incidentally was when I was in seminary. So it explains why I had never heard anybody talk like that, because that document was not really well known yet. And we were still very much operating on an earlier understanding, which was like basically a no tolerance policy towards anything that even remotely looked like an abortion. Now, again, because the church does grow in wisdom, and this is an example of how, as long as abortion's not the goal, if there's an unintended consequence of the death of a child, that's not abortion. These people on TikTok could not understand that. They're like, oh, it's the same thing medically. No. Okay, medically maybe it is, but it's not the same morally. How can you not understand that? It's medically and morally, they're two different things. And honestly, our show was dealing with it from largely a philosophical side, which is even very different from the moral and healthcare side of things. So, this is what makes the issue so complicated.
It's really very straightforward. It's the difference between killing. I mean, this is always the. I mean, the risk of Godwin's law. There's the question that's asked a lot. Would you go back in time and kill baby Hitler? Right? Yeah. It's the difference between killing baby Hitler and killing Hitler in 1945.
There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
There's the bloody difference. It's the same act. You're killing the same person, but one is of an innocent baby that's not done anything, and one is of somebody who's declared war and murdered millions of people. Right. So there you go. There's a difference for you that even a TikToker should be able to understand.
Yeah, I would think so, but I wouldn't count on that one. I wouldn't count on it.
We'll know in a week when they start seeing the snips of this.
Well, no, we won't, because my comments are off.
Oh, yeah. Well,
they might not go back on until next season.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
When I picture a TikTok user, and I should be careful because I'm sure at least one of my children uses it. But when I picture a TikTok user, I see a mean girl with the intellect of Ralph Wiggum.
That probably makes up a great majority of the users. Not all of them, of course, but a great majority, no doubt. No, it was a very low intellectual capacity that I was seeing in that particular video. Now, usually TikTok's not so bad.
It's also owned by a government that's rather promoted abortion for the best part of 80 years.
So far, yeah, and I guess nobody cares about that anymore. I don't know what happened with it. Do you ever find out what Trump did with it? Do we know?
I thought a private buyer, thought they kept it quiet. Someone bought it. I don't know who.
I think it was just a talking point, and then they moved on to Iran and everything else, and now aliens. It's
aliens.
Yeah, it's always aliens. So, April, that's the best I can give on that one. It's not murder because the person, it's not suicide because they're not wanting to die, they're not trying to die, and it's not murder because they're not trying to kill anyone, they're actually trying to save lives. And sometimes...
What's the moral aim?
Yeah.
That's the question.
That's the moral aim. So in a medical situation, sometimes someone has to go. And the difficulty becomes who becomes the more important person. I would say whoever's the most viable. I would say...
it's why she was canonized, by the way. Yeah. Because actually she could have legitimately had surgery to remove the cancer, which would have had the unfortunate effect of killing the baby. But that would have been okay by church teaching.
Yeah, that would have been. But she was canonized because she chose the harder choice.
She chose a sacrificial way.
A sacrificial and a selfless decision. So it's actually morally superior in a way. So, that's a challenge for some people today, I think.
That's what gets us in trouble. We're saying that some moralities are better than others. And that always will get you in trouble.
Oh, well.
Same with the culture war. Some cultures are better than others. If you say that, you're in big trouble on TikTok.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's true.
Well, they don't understand philosophy. They don't teach philosophy anymore. Philosophy is that's old news. And the only place you can really learn philosophy, professionally, like at a high academic level, would be in university. And who wants to go get a degree in philosophy? What are you going to do with that? Because people go to college to make money.
And most universities now have removed philosophy.
Yeah.
And even the great universities. I'm loath to name one because I went there and I'm not sure it's great anymore. But
I'm not sure any of them are anymore.
But even you've seen that. Well, there was recently at Oxford a professor has been basically censured. Who is a professor of philosophy? Even by the way, Richard Dawkins has signed the opposition to the Vice Chancellor saying this is disgraceful because they allowed a protest within his lecture room.
Wow.
At Oxford. So if Oxford's gone and you can't learn philosophy at Oxford or theology,
then you're shit out of luck, right? You have to tune into Vestiges After Dark. It's alive and well here.
Yeah.
Maybe not academically, but at least it's entertainingly so. We can make it more academic if people want, but I fear that we'll have just one person.
This is a better way.
Yeah,
this is a better way.
I think it's more tangible.
We want to communicate it.
Yeah.
The whole point of being educated isn't so you can then just parrot, complicate.
Yeah, memorize things and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and read out words people can't understand. It's to put it in layman's,
meet on even ground and have a discussion.
I agree with that. All right, April, what's our next question?
Well, I want to say, and I didn't mean to cause a controversy when I asked the question, but it's something that's, a lot of people really struggle with that. And I think it's important to kind of.
It's an absolutely necessary question to ask. There's nothing wrong with asking it, but it is to be noted that there's nothing that can be discussed by a church in particular that will cause more controversy than that subject, particularly today. I mean, it's always been very volatile, but today it's so much worse because women have been sold a bill of goods that really has been conditioning them to feel that the patriarchy has been trying to chip away at their rights and their privileges ever since the beginning of time. And that this is still going on and we're still doing it. And dirty, rotten bishops in the church are still doing it because they wouldn't be doing this if they got pregnant. It's only because they can't get pregnant that they're making rules like this. This is how
these sexless men tell us what to do.
Yeah, this is the attitude, even though
damn cis males.
It has nothing at all to do with the subject matter. It has nothing to do with it. And you can't, until you take them through a 5-year degree, they'll never understand it.
No, but that's why they do it, because the subject matter is not on their side.
No.
I mean, and that's why it's a distraction to say, and because I when I engage with this, I choose not to argue. Okay, let's accept that I'm a patriarchal woman-hating man. Okay, let's take that as read. Now can we get to the argument?
You misogynist. That's what they'll say to you, Father. That's what they'll say to you.
You enter the blank cyst.
Well, the response is, I wouldn't talk to someone who believes that. Okay, right, there you go. So you got no interest in the arguments whatsoever. So there's no point resisting. I sent the bishop a hit piece on me that a left-wing Guardian journalist had written last week, and it's the best advert in the world for what I do. What's interesting is the paucity of, like, they can't engage with the arguments. They can just try and say you shouldn't be allowed to speak.
Yeah.
I understand that. And I know why. People like Charlie Kirk were popular because they actually tried to fight against that kind of stuff. I didn't agree with his methods, but I did understand his and it came at a price. It came at a big price. I understood. Look, I was very critical of his methods, and he was nowhere near as informed as he liked to believe he was about many things, I'll tell you. But I understand the motive. I understand the need to have to be a voice against that kind of thinking. I'm not sure he was the best poster child for it. I think there are other people that could have done a better job. But I understood why he did what he did, and I understand why people liked him for it. I get it. I do. I get it. Because, you can't just make scapegoats out of your enemies and say, oh, you're the cause of all of our problems because you check all the boxes. Oh, you're male, you're white, you're whatever, and everything's wrong with you because of it. I mean, that's just another type of sexism, racism, and if you don't see it, there's nothing I can do to help you. But it is, whether you like it or not, it is. That's racism. That's
well,
sexism.
I just say, are you assuming my gender?
There you go. All right. So, April, what's our next question?
All right. Is removing an unwelcome guest from a funeral considered keeping someone from God? And this came up on last week's Vestiges.
Okay.
No.
I think I know the person that you're talking about. This was a much more complicated scenario than this question suggests. Now, I would say that what happened here was, I got to be careful with this one because I don't know what he revealed in the chat, but what happened at this particular situation, using as a generic verbiage as I can, is that there's challenges within this family, a lot of hard feelings. A young child, his young child became terminally ill. and is now deceased. And this group of problematic family members were not invited to this funeral, but showed up anyway. And long story short, police were called. They were escorted out. The family escorted out, accused him of keeping them from God. My response to this individual was, and this is my answer to the question, is that a funeral, the death of a child, is not the time to be getting into that kind of family drama. The appropriate response would be to grin and bear it, even though it happened, and then deal with it after the fact. I don't think a funeral was the time to do it. Certainly not to call the police and get a big dramatic thing involved when people are trying to be there to mourn. I think that was not the best decision. But they accused him of being a sinner and everything else. So the fact of the matter is, look, it's not, there's no sin here. Maybe not the best decision was made, but then again, you're emotionally compromised. You just lost a child, for God's sake. So it's understandable. But in that particular scenario, I'd say no, it would have been probably better to, it's not immoral to have them removed, but it probably would have been better for everybody involved if you just been quiet and waited. I think that would have been the better thing to do. But things happen.
I've had to deal with lots of, I did, one of the parishes I was at, I would have got maybe 3-4 funerals a week. So I've dealt with a lot of funerals. Yeah. And it was a part of the world where there are some spicy people, shall we say?
Yes.
Yes. Funerals that have involved criminals, bikie gangs, all that sort of thing, right? So I'm not unfamiliar with conducting funerals where there are family tensions.
Tensions would be,
yeah.
And it's much more common now. It's almost impossible to find some, older person that's been buried where there's not a divorce in the family, right? And all the stuff that goes with it. So I was pretty ruthless with people, and and this is not really about this person because I don't know. This passed me by last week, so I don't know anything about that. So, which puts me in a position of strength when I'm talking about this, I think. But I was pretty ruthless. I would say, if any service that takes place in my church is a public event. So anybody can go to a church service. Mm-hmm. They're advertised. Now, if you disrupt a church service in the state of New South Wales, that's a criminal offence. The police can come and remove you. Okay?
And I agree with that, actually. I do agree with that.
It's quite a reassuring law. I think that's quite a good law, actually. Mm-hmm. And so in England, under common law, parish councillors have powers of arrest, actually. It's the origin of the police force came from the parish church. Church wardens had powers of arrest. That's why they carry staffs of office. It was to hit people with, and from that we end up with parish constables and then police constables, and then it goes out. So, but I used to say it's a public event. Anybody can come to an act of worship. I can't stop them, right? And I wouldn't want to stop them either, but I can't stop them. But I would sometimes I had the police on standby outside.
Sure.
Because they were dangerous people, and I was a police chaplain, and so they'd always come and help me out anyway, and an ex-copper. So, and I used to say, look, anyone can come, anyone's welcome to worship. If there's any nonsense, you're gone.
Yeah.
And I'm in charge of this church,
Yeah, and see, that's fine.
So
that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I think the real issue here is that
I took it off the family, in other words.
Yeah.
Because it's really unfair. This sounds like a desperately horrible situation.
It's a bad situation that's been an ongoing thing. And I really think that the issue really was just, you don't need more drama, particularly right now. This, would have been better to deal with it after the fact, not during.
But no sin has been committed.
No, there's no sin, and because they were told, he was also told that he was going to go to hell for this, and I need to reassure him that no, you do not go to hell for making that decision.
By which religious authority?
Yeah, I know, right? So
no,
yeah,
you're fine. You're not going to hell. If you're listening, you're not going to hell.
You're not going to hell.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a shitty situation.
Yeah,
and not all shitty situations mean you've committed mortal sin.
Yeah. It's just not the best time to do it. Probably should have dealt with it after the fact, but there's no sin that's committed. Okay. What's our next one?
We can't control other people.
No, you can't. And sometimes things happen.
Next question comes from Lee off of Facebook, and they asked, do you think we cause our own problems by speaking negatively about something?
Well, this is more of a metaphysical
It
kind of
is.
question. I would say that it doesn't help you. I'm not going to say in all situations that all of your problems are the result of being negative, but I will say if you are a negative person, you're going to have the lion's share of problems.
Like attracts like.
Like attracts like. That is
By
one of the
definition.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. And so it is the fundamental primary occult law that exists for all of us. Whether you believe in the occult or not, whether you like it or not, whether you're afraid of it or not, does not matter. The occult doesn't care if you like it or are afraid of it or if you believe in it. It does not care. It is an immaterial type of thing, but it does exist. These laws do exist. And it maybe the better way of putting it to rest people's minds is to not say they are occult laws, even though they are, but to understand what an occult law is. And what an occult law is that which governs the incorporeal parts of the cosmos, the things that science cannot rationally observe and then make a law based upon what it can observe. So you get the laws of physics, which are physical laws, but the laws of the incorporeal parts of this cosmos are operate under a different series of laws, and like attract like is one of the primary ones. So yeah, if you're a very negative person, then negative things are going to find you, okay? Because that's what you're resonating out. So you think of yourself as a magnet. The more negative you are, the more negative types of things that are in your proximity will be attracted to that. And the more that you walk around and expose yourself to the environment, the more that if places have negative things in them, are going to come to you and wreak havoc on your life. Likewise, if you're a very positive person, then the opposite can happen. My bishop taught me a wonderful practice. I actually wish that I remembered to do it more often because it is such a wonderful thing. But he taught me to do my best as part of my exercise of mindfulness that I already integrate into my life. So it's almost a type of meditation, really. But rather than to just make it a self-directed sort of exercise, he encouraged me to make it more external in the sense that when I'm out there being mindful, to be what he called a walking blessing. So as you're going through a mall or shopping center, an airport, wherever you happen to find yourself where there's lots of people around, as you cross each other's path, just quietly in your mind, look at the person and in your mind say, may God bless you. And you just keep going through as people cross your path, you make eye contact, you maybe smile if they see you, and then in your mind, you don't say this, verbally or out, you just make it an internal thing, but direct it at them, or you can even make the God bless this person, may God bless this person, and you just keep doing this. And I'll tell you right now, you want to see your life change as far as like negativity, if you're finding yourself into a negative pattern, or if you believe yourself to be the victim of some kind of curse, do that for a little while. If you're really attentive to it, you make it a regular habit to do, you're going to see your life change, and sometimes radically, very quickly. And that all is based on the same principle of like attracts like. This is just doing something good, going out there and just being an instrument. Because what the universe looks at you and then says, oh, you're one of these people that gives blessings. Well, then I guess blessings need to find this person so that they can give more. And so it increases your own abundance of grace. And this is even without religious belief. That's the beauty of this thing, is that God built it so perfectly into the fabric of creation itself that it doesn't even need, even though it's best if it operates under the understanding of a relationship with God, it doesn't even require one, because it's just how the cosmos is built.
It's raising your vibration.
It does. It raises your vibration. And so a lot of times when you see people that are having these horrible things constantly happen to them, you get into their story and you find they're just negative freaking people. They're angry at the world. They hate everybody. They're always upset about something. And yeah, how can that not continuously produce negative consequences? Of course it will. So yeah, the answer to the question is absolutely. Not all problems, and sometimes bad luck is a thing, and what I call bad luck is not like some kind of mystical property out there that we call luck. What I would say luck is essentially just the randomness of the cosmos, where sometimes randomly bad things happen. They have to happen to someone. Sometimes it happens to be you, but likewise, sometimes good things happen to people, and occasionally it's going to fall into your lap as well. So it's kind of an equal distribution type of thing. But contrary to a lot of belief, God does not control every nitty-gritty detail of everything that happens. God controls the things that matter, which is what leads us to salvation. That's where God intervenes. But the rest of it's really just a random distribution beyond that. So God is not orchestrating every little detail, all the minutiae of our lives. That's not true. And that's why bad things can happen. Because he's not orchestrating all of it. Some of it's personal responsibility. He wants us to have to learn to deal with these things as well, and so he lets bad happen on the basis that it's not that he causes.
He's gonna have to live with us for all eternity, so we need to figure this crap out.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah.
So
it's like if you're gonna be with me, you gotta know how to deal with
problem
this,
children.
But it's also where I know often we kind of whip evangelicals on this show, and sometimes that's required. But I want to give some credit here.
Okay.
And because and again, for the record, it was an evangelical church that introduced me to the Christian gospel, and where I found that actually it was true. So there you go. So you've got a win. You've got a W, evangelicals. But I do want to say that, and it happened with me as well. When you said you can see it in somebody, that is true. When people who've been in pretty dark places, which as adults, the reason that people come to faith is because they're going through some sort of crisis, right?
Oh yeah.
It's never because everything's swimming. Like I'm a billionaire and really enjoy my life and my family are perfect and no one's ever died. That's not when you come to faith generally. Actually, if someone like that does come to faith, hats off to them. That's amazing. But generally it's because they've been in a pretty shitty place. And so and you can see, like, when people convert, that you can see it in their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a miracle, but it's an ordinary miracle.
Yes.
And so I want to give evangelicals some credit, because they really do seek that in people, and that's a good thing to want to do.
Yeah.
So I've said something nice. There you go.
Everyone has a good side, even evangelicals. All right, April, I know you have a bonus question. I think we have time to answer it, so let's go for it.
Okay, so it says, you have spoken of the psychic filter that protects us from the spirit realm so we don't go crazy. Then you mentioned about people trying to find ways to take down that filter, like people trying to become mediums, etc. My question is, don't we need to be able to do that to an extent so that we can have a relationship or dialogue with the spirit realm or the first reflection, the archetypes? What is a safe way to do that?
Okay, so this is a metaphysical question, esoteric question. The question is referring to the psychic sensor, which is not really a physical thing. It's just a way that our psyche protects itself by filtering out spiritual data points that are not conducive to our existence here in this material plane of existence. And if we could literally see all of the incorporeal things that are happening all around us, we would quite quickly go mad. We would, and it happens. And I mean, think about your NDE. Imagine if that was what you saw all the time while you're trying to do police work or trying to do anything. I mean,
what's crazy is after that experience, some of the incidents I did deal with in law enforcement absolutely had a supernatural, paranormal component to it that I didn't realize at the time. But reflecting back, big
time.
You see too much. When you see too much, when in the moment, you're trained to file it away for later, get the mission done, and then you realize afterwards, what was that?
And it's really what makes it...
The more you see, the more you kind of question reality.
What makes it so dangerous is that it has a shelf life, the psychic sensor.
Yeah.
It only has so much resistance. It's kind of like well, any other part of the human body, right? I mean, for a while, use it or lose it is the rule, but eventually you reach a point where the more you use it, the more you lose it, because it eventually just wears out. And the psychic sensor can be worn out, and sometimes people go out of their way through occult techniques to wear it down. And the fact of the matter is, once you break it, you can't get it back. And that can absolutely lead to a type of madness. And it will present as a type of acute psychosis, but it won't be a medical condition at that point. It will be definitely something that occurred at more of the spiritual level.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before, maybe on this show,
Yeah.
or just sitting around smoking cigars. I think quite a few people that are in mental institutions, I think that may have been what happened. And I think you've mentioned this too, their psychic sensor breaks, and all of a sudden they see everything, and it's way too much. Their brain can't handle it.
Can't handle
So next thing you know, they're
Oh,
schizophrenic.
I've met so many people like in law enforcement. That's when you meet people like that, right?
Yep.
That's true. So
because like all of the filters are gone, and,
Yeah.
and so
They see everything, and
they
then
walk through the street naked,
and
right?
they can't understand why you don't see it. You know.
So the reality
Yeah.
is there is no safe way to disable it, okay? It always comes at the risk of breaking it forever. Cannot be fixed, cannot be repaired. You only have to learn to deal with it, which most people cannot figure out how to do. Religion, and this is where people are going to be upset with me, but it's the truth. Religion offers the most reasonable method for bending it gently. But even this is something I would not say is safe, because religion's not safe. Don't think because it has the word Jesus attached to it that it's all of a sudden safe. There's nothing safe about Jesus. All right, there's nothing safe about Jesus. It's all sacrifice and
Ask his disciples.
I know, right?
Yeah, all but one.
All but one ended up dead.
All but one.
Yeah. So no, there's no safe way to do it. There is a skillful way to utilize methods that help to do productive or provide productive results, but I would not say there's a safe way, and I would definitely say it is not
It's
something
why
you
we
should
wear
pursue.
vestments at mass.
Yeah,
That's
that's
why we
bends the
we
sensor.
say vesting prayers.
Yes.
These are spiritual preparation.
Yes.
Because that is like the ultimate spiritual reality.
It's why we burn
You know,
incense. It's why we lower the
Yeah.
lights and burn candles, and all the things that we do at a Catholic Mass is to gently bend the psychic sensor so we become a little bit, slightly more susceptible to the spiritual world, but not in a way that's harmful.
It's the
Okay.
difference between, gently opening up a door and peeking inside and getting a picture of everything in there, and then being introduced slowly, and as opposed to kicking in the door, running in, guns blazing.
Yeah, and
It's-
unfortunately, most of the Llewellyn books out there that teach you some kind of New Age method of doing this is going to be kicking in the door, and you're going to end up knocked on your ass, let me tell you. Okay, so we're going to take our first break here at the top of the hour. When we come back, I will give a presentation on esoteric Christianity. Don't go away.
Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum.
Szakaszom, ritmust az a toys.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second hour of Vestiges After Dark. Now we are going to begin tonight's topic on esoteric Christianity. I'll try to go more brief than I usually do on these presentations. I just want to go over a little bit about what it is and how this church integrates it, what it means to be an esoteric Catholic church. A lot of people are confused about that with Nicholean Catholicism, so I'm going to clear it all up tonight, okay? So don't go anywhere. That's coming up. Okay, so usually I go the whole segment on these. I'm going to try. I have enough material to do that, but I'm going to try to keep it more condensed tonight because I'd like to stick to closer to maybe 20 minutes on this and then leave the rest of the show to kind of talk about it and break it down from there. But I want to cover some very specific points because I think these are really important. I know that just from every Mass that we stream on the YouTube and Facebook channels, I am always shocked at some of the ignorance that gets thrown out there during Mass. There are people that will quote that part of the is it Revelation where they'll talk about the Nicolaitans?
That was just going through my head. It's like we're Nicholeans.
We're Nicholean,
not Nicolaitans.
Not the licentious group. Okay,
yeah,
we are
pervs.
we are the Nicholean Church after Saint Nicholas.
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. Okay, it is that's what it means. That's what the church means. And I didn't choose the name, so don't blame me. I felt honestly it was a little bit. I felt it was overcomplicated, but I was overruled on that one. That was before I actually administrated the church. But I wasn't even a bishop at that time. But anyway, so the Nicholean Church is after St. Nicholas, and we are an esoteric Catholic Church inspired by early Christianity. That's how we define ourselves. You can find out everything you want to know beyond what I'm going to be able to cover tonight at esotericcatholic.org. That's our website. You can also go to nicholean.org, Nicholean, and just click the FAQ on the menu, and it will take you to all of the questions, the commonly asked questions that we have to deal with, as well as our canons. And we're going to go over a lot of those canons tonight. Some of those things are going to be maybe a little surprising to you. Some of them are going to be very familiar. But I want to start off with what is esoteric Christianity. Okay, so because when people hear the word esoteric, they often think of like a secret religion. an occult religion, hidden elitist teachings, and anti-Christian mysticism thrown in there, maybe even some Gnosticism.
Oh, yeah, we've had that accusation.
Of course, because there are a lot of esoteric churches that actually do follow after some of those characteristics. We, however, do not. The Nicholean Catholic Church does not use the word esoteric in this way, but esoteric is the only way to define the kind of Christianity that we practice, because in our understanding of the belief structure of esoteric Christianity, there is really only one absolute public Christianity for ordinary, for all people, but not necessarily a secret Christianity for the spiritual elites. All right, so we are 100% with the mainstream Christian churches that teach that Christianity is for everyone. We believe the same, and we practice the same. In fact, I would say we're actually more open to other people than the mainstream Christians are. I think we do a better job of that, okay? And you'll see here in a minute. Esoteric Christianity does not mean that salvation depends on secret information, hidden codes, or occult knowledge. All right. In the Nicholean Church, what we mean when we say esoteric, it means that we practice a Christianity that is inner, experiential, and participatory. That's what we mean by it. Esoteric because it happens at an internal level that is not seen. Okay, even though there's the external things that are the same for everybody. Sacraments, charity, the Mass, sermons, pastoral work, outreach ministry, even though it has all of those and it does all of those things, teaching, in fact, we're doing that right now. But we believe, and our Christianity emphasizes, our method of Christianity emphasizes the internal experiential side of the religion, more so than the external side. That's the difference. And that's really the only difference, but that difference is major in certain ways, which we'll see here. Christianity, in our understanding, is something that's entered into, not something you believe in, not something that you practice, but something that you enter into. And in the Christian context, this is a relationship thing. Some realities cannot be fully understood from the outside. They can only be understood once you participate in them. This is true for love. You can explain what love is, you can define it, but it's not the same thing as being loved or giving love. You can explain what parenthood is like, but it's not the same thing as being a parent. You can explain what grief is like, but it's not the same thing as actually grieving. Okay? And the same thing is true for prayer and contemplation. We can talk about these things. We can claim to know what they mean, but until we actually experience what they are intrinsically, we really don't know them. And that is the esoteric dimension to Christianity. And newsflash, this is not different than what the mainstream magisterium of the Church of Rome teaches. And it's certainly not different than what the Orthodox churches teach. It's absolutely the same thing. The only difference is what is emphasized. In our church, that is emphasized over all of the more legalistic concepts that the Church of Rome gets tied up in from time to time, like abortion politics and that kind of thing that we've talked about, right? Yeah, I mean, we deal with it. Sometimes it's something that needs to be contended with. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what we focus on, okay? And I would argue that it shouldn't need to be focused on, because once you teach the truth and once people know how to find the truth, well, they come to their own conclusions. You don't need to force legislation on them. They'll understand the immorality of something like abortion. You don't need to enforce the law, okay? What you need to do is protect the method, and then the understanding comes. So that's what we mean by esoteric Christianity. The other side to esoteric Christianity, I think, is also something that needs to be emphasized greatly, is that theology takes on a deeper, richer context. For example, the story of Adam and Eve. It's very common in mainstream Christianity to say, oh, well, these were historical people. You know, they had, the snake was the devil. and they disobeyed God by eating that fruit, and we fell, and now we realized we were naked and we had to cover up and all this stuff, and they take that as a literal historical story. And honestly, there's nothing in Christian theology that says you have to see it as anything other than face value. There's nothing that says you have to. However, an esoteric Christian understands that there's no history here, but there's something much greater than history, something much more profound, something much more real than history. And that is the ineffable actions and movements of God is in that story. And it is actually the story of salvation, at least how it begins, right? And unless you understand the esoteric implications of it, you won't really see that this was actually ultimately a good thing, which is why the church has a whole hymn about it called "Oh, Happy Fault," because it really was the way that we were introduced to Jesus. And that's, again, beyond the scope of tonight's show, because I'm just giving you a quick survey of this, and I don't want to spend all night on it. But, this is where we get into, and you hear me talk about how, it's not Satan in the garden. The snake is Yetzirah. That's our proclivity to do wrong. And no, they didn't realize they were naked in the way that, people walk around at nudist colonies naked. It's not like that. It's more like we realized the fragility of our existence and then had to take on animal skins, literally mammalian skin in the form of primates, in order to now exist in this fallen, broken universe that now we inhabit because of it. Something that we don't really truly understand. We just know that there's something that occurred. It was disobedience, and it was necessary. All of it was necessary to have happen for our own growth and understanding, which is all an esoteric way of looking at it. Same thing when I talk about Jesus. Remember, I've said, well, where did the devil come from then? If he's not in the Old Testament, and if he's not the serpent in the Garden of Eden, then why is Jesus talking to him in the desert? Why is he tempting him? Where did this Lucifer fallen angel guy come from? And, the church has its answer. Well, it's a fallen angel. He rebelled against God. He took a bunch of angels with him. He was a high-ranking archangel or whatever. These are things that people will say. Some people say he wasn't even an archangel. It was one of the higher choirs.
A seraphim.
Yeah, they'll say that kind of, anything that they can do to try to explain it, but it's much more realistic esoterically to understand what really happened. Well, again, if the devil is ultimately the Yetzirah, the proclivity of humanity to do wrong, to be self-interested, to commit evil acts, if that's what the devil or the serpent was in the Garden of Eden, and if that's ultimately what the devil is all throughout the Judeo-Christian story, then it stands to reason that if Jesus incarnates human flesh and becomes like us in all things but sin, that's Scripture, not me, that's what Scripture says. He became like us in all things but sin, in all ways but sin. Then where does the Yetzirah part of his human nature go? Because it can't coexist with him. That would make him sinful. So where's it go? Well, it becomes the devil. And that's what the devil really is. And that's why you don't really meet this devil until after the incarnation of Jesus, because that is the part of his human nature that was expelled from it so that he could perfectly inhabit human flesh. That's an esoteric telling of the theology. It doesn't contradict anything that the church really teaches, other than it gives a more enlightened understanding as to what really is going on, and it helps to bridge the gap between some of the historical inconsistencies, how the Jewish theology works, and this is what makes it, I think, a superior way of talking about these things. Not necessary, just superior intellectually. It might not be for everyone, but this is a more intellectual kind of church than most. And so therefore, the people that find this church are looking for a deeper kind of understanding. That's why we're here. That's why we do this show. So, it's just a different approach. It's not a different theology. There's a few different things in our canons, which I'm going to get to here. But esoteric Christianity, properly understood, is not a secret doctrine. It's just Christianity understood from the inside and always through direct participation in the divine life, which is ultimately what Orthodoxy calls theosis. Okay? So that's the important thing. Understand the Holy Nicholean Catholic Church shares all the major foundations of Christianity with Roman Catholicism. All right? We have apostolic succession that we maintain, valid apostolic succession. I should say that because people always accuse it of not being valid. In the summer, we're going to go over the independent sacramental movement in July next month when we have our summer special, and I'll go into more detail on it then. But understand, it's valid apostolic succession. We have episcopal governance. That's me. All right, I'm a bishop. We have sacramental theology. We don't deviate from it. Okay, so while a lot of independent churches will be like, oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and start ordaining women or to the priesthood, and let's one up. Let's have lesbian female bishops. Like we see sometimes, and not even in the independent sacramental movement. We see that with the Anglicans. Okay, so that's a violation of what sacramental theology teaches. Now we might, from a personal point of view, say, hey, you know what? Women can do a good job at this. Why not? Honestly, hey, I'd have a full church of clergy if I could ordain women, because all I have are women that want to be involved in ministry. I don't have any men that really want to do anything. Okay, so I could actually have a full staff of clergy if I could ordain women. And you know what? If it was allowed, I'd do it. I don't have anything against it intrinsically. I can't make that change because of the sacramental theology as it is. That can't be changed by one bishop. It would have to be changed by an entire ecumenical council, and then only after they have found a valid means of being able to authorize it, and which is very unlikely to ever happen. So this is, again, to show the integrity of this church. We don't change sacramental theology because it's now inconvenient. We don't change it because, we're not under Rome, so we don't have to listen to what the Pope says. No, we don't change it because we can't. We're still Catholic. I don't need the Pope holding me by a tight leash to do the right thing. I'm a free individual, and I'm a responsible man of integrity. I don't need the Pope forcing my hand. I know what's the difference between what I can do, what I can't do, what's right and wrong, and so I do it. Okay? And so no different with the Nicholean Church. We have liturgical worship with the Mass, the Nicene Creed. We recite. We don't change it. All right? We have a Christ-centered theology. It's all about Jesus Christ. We have contemplative prayer. All right? We believe that salvation is necessary, something that we're here to accomplish, but we will add to that and say it's more than just a legal acquittal from our sins. We will say that salvation is not so much about that. That's the most insignificant part of what salvation is. What salvation is returning to God. That's the important part of it. Okay? We're losing you. We're losing you, Jamie. You're hiding behind the faces. Sorry, we've got a tighter shot, and she's used to being a little bit over there, so she's going to come a little bit closer.
Cancers, we don't like to be on top of
each other. No, you're fine. You're not going to crowd me. You're good.
Need my space.
You're
sir.
good. You're good.
Okay.
I just think this is a better shot, don't you think? I think it's a better.
I agree. It's actually been bugging me.
Yeah. I felt we were too far away. We're looking all over the place. Now I can look more at you and talk to you instead of talking to someone down there. We also believe that grace is what transforms a person. That's strictly Catholic. Not strictly Catholic. It is truly Catholic. Okay. I'm not going to get into all the sacramental theology. We'd be here for hours if I did. But we have a strong reverence for the Eucharist. We understand it to be the body and blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. We use the rites of the Church of Rome in our liturgy because we understand them to be valid and validity matters to us. So we're not going to create our own mass because why we can. We're not under anybody's authority. We can do whatever we want. No, we can't. We try to maintain integrity. It's a Catholic church, regardless of whether or not the Church of Rome sees us as an important part of the system of Catholicism. But we're not going to make changes just because we could. No one's going to stop us. We don't see that as useful. I talked about the apostolic community. Our Christology is, again, completely the same as the Church of Rome. There's really no differences there. But there are some differences, and this is where we get into what I mean by a non-dogmatic theology. Now, you've heard Father Chris and I sometimes talk about this a little bit, where the definition of how he uses dogmatism is a little bit different than the one that I use. And I think he's using the more correct understanding of the term. I'm using a more vernacular understanding of the term because people understand when I say we're a non-dogmatic church, which means that we're not legalistic. We're not going around enforcing the law, declaring sinners and saying you're going to hell until you repent kind of church. We're not that kind of church. We believe in personal responsibility. And so therefore, we don't feel we need to dogmatically rule on things with the exception of sacramental theology. And only because to not do that means risking invalidity. And I'm not willing to risk an invalid sacrament just because I want to put non-dogmatic principles above that. I can't do that. Okay, so there are limits even here in this church where I won't cross certain lines, but where I can cross lines is on more of the interpretations of certain things, and that's where there are some differences. We don't believe doctrine is meaningless. We think doctrine is essential, and we are a doctrine-focused church. However, we don't believe in treating this legalistically. Okay, so that's what I mean by non-dogmatic. We're not legalistic about it, and we're not looking to, declare penalties and put you in fear of hell just because you're maybe not doing things the way we want you to do them. Okay. Roman Catholicism puts a greater emphasis on doctrinal certainty. We put our emphasis on experiential participation. Both churches have both, okay? We have doctrinal certainty. Again, sacramental theology proves it, okay? We believe that we are certain the Eucharist is the body and blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. And Roman Catholicism, has an experiential participation. They understand the relationship to God and the need. In fact, receiving the Eucharist is about that participation in the divine life. It's just that while they will focus more on things like papal infallibility and, the doctrine, the dogma of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary and, transubstantiation, all these things, we take more of an Eastern Orthodox approach to these things and just say they're mysteries. It doesn't really matter how it happens. We just know it does. And what really matters here is that you receive it and it changes you, and you come to learn more about God in these moments. Things that people that don't have God in their life couldn't even begin to understand. All right, and it builds over time. It's not something you can just take the Eucharist and all of a sudden things just like your eyes are opened. I mean, it could happen, but I'm not going to count on that. It's a relationship. It grows with you. And this takes us to some of the things that are different. So what I'm going to do? I have a list here, but I'm going to go actually to esotericcatholic.org, and I'm going to talk about some of these differences in real time. If you want to follow along with me, you can go to esotericcatholic.org/FAQ. And we're going to skip the questions and go down to where it says our canons. And then the first one that we have here, well, first I'll read the things that we are different. So there's 3 points here. We are different because we are a non-dogmatic apostolic liturgical system, which I've already covered. 2, this is important, but it's going to sound maybe a little heretical at first, and it's not. I'll explain why. We posit that salvation is achieved by faith, for works, and through epignosis. I'm going to explain what that means shortly. And then third, we respect all religions, all traditions, all creeds, even though we protect and defend our own traditions' boundaries. So it's not like we're going to go around and say, oh, well, we're invalidating this religion because they don't believe like us, or we're going to invalidate Vajrayana Buddhism because they don't have Jesus in it. No, we respect that as a tradition. We respect that as a religion. We respect what they believe, but we also protect what we teach, okay? And they don't have to be in conflict at all, and they're not. So let's look at some of the things that are different. So the first point, if you scroll down, if you're following along, is open adult baptism. Okay, what this means is in the Church of Rome, if you are a convert, never been baptized, and you want to become a Roman Catholic, okay, what that means is you're going to be asked to go through catechesis, and it's probably going to be about a year, and you're going to be taught everything that you need to know about the Catholic faith. And then on the Easter Vigil, well, there'll be some rituals in between, like the rite of election and different things that go on throughout Lent. But when you get to the Easter Vigil, you will then receive baptism, usually also confirmation and your first Eucharist at all at that same time. We don't do that in this church unless it's justifiable. Now, I'm not going to say we don't do it. In fact, that is the preferred normal way. That's the ordinary way. But if we have a person that comes to us deeply in need of Christ and says, I need him, I'm willing, I'm ready to take him as my Lord God and Savior, I'm not going to be like, well, okay, well, we'll put you into to the classes, and then and then in a year we'll take care of it. I'm not going to do that to the person.
Strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah, strike while the iron's hot, and give them the opportunity to, because they're thirsting for God. And I can tell you right now, St. Paul, he did that. That's the way he did it. He didn't tell him, okay, you're going to wait. No, he did it on the spot. Find a puddle on the ground and just do it. All right, and so that's what we do. When there is somebody like that, we will do what we call the extraordinary form of baptism, and that is when they're ready, okay? And we baptize them on the spot, right there, and take care of it. And then we put them into class to go through catechesis to receive confirmation. And I should also note that I will also, if I believe that they are ready to understand the nature of the Eucharist as the body and blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ, well then, assuming they've come to that understanding, they can receive their first communion with their baptism. But confirmation, we say for education. You need to have catechesis for that one. But confirmation is also not an essential sacrament for salvation. It's not necessary. Whereas I would say that baptism absolutely is, and Eucharist pretty much is. Confirmation is just a great help, okay? So we do open adult baptisms because the church does open child baptism, no problem. All right. But if you're a baby born, they want you baptized almost right away. But adults, they put you through the whole 9 yards. I'm not going to say that one way's better than the other. I think there's advantages to both, but I cannot deny someone God if they're ready. And the way our church works, I can't miss or risk losing the opportunity for that person to meet Christ in that moment. So we have to operate a little differently, and there's nothing invalid about doing it. It's just different. Extra canonical scriptures, where does that stand? Some people ask me about this. We read them, we enjoy them, we teach about them, but we do not see them as authoritative, and we do not use them as part of our lectionary. We use the same lectionary that the Church of Rome uses. So it's the same readings across the entire Catholic world, but we do not, the Nag Hammadi, any the Deuterocanon, all these other things that the pseudepigrapha, we don't get into all those other books as authoritative. We just read them as expanding our philosophical understanding. Homosexuality is a complicated one in this church because I'm going to read exactly what it says so I don't miss anything. Our position is that the Holy Nicholean Catholic Church must not stand in judgment against such individuals who define themselves as homosexuals. While we do not dismiss what the Roman Catholic Church has stated, we likewise do not affirm it as our own teaching, in a sense, because we can find ourselves in agreement that its psychological genesis remains largely unexplained. That's the Church of Rome's direct quote. We choose not to define it in general terms. However, homosexuality does present some sacramental and ministerial challenges, which we shall deal with below. And so I'm going to get into a few of those. So ordination and homosexuality, that's one. We don't find any substantial reason why the sacrament of holy orders needs to be refused to someone who's a homosexual. We don't feel that that's a problem, provided that they live a life of celibacy and chastity. If they're living a life of celibacy and chastity, then the sacrament of holy orders is open to them. And that's only not because we think that homosexuality is necessarily this horrific act of perversion. We don't make a statement on it one way or the other because we just don't understand it. Just like the Church of Rome says, we just don't really know its psychological genesis. We kind of stay with that one. And so rather than say, well, it's wrong, it's repulsive, it's this or it's that, we simply say that, well, fornication we do know about. And I can't and I'm going to get into sacramental marriage in a minute, I can't confer matrimony on a homosexual couple. That means that any sexual activity they have together is going to be fornication. So I can't have a fornicating priest. So that would be a problem. That would be a conflict. But it's assuming they have made a promise. And there is no promise of chastity. There is no promise of celibacy, rather, in the Nicholean Church with clergy. You can have married priests. You can have married bishops. I'm one, right? I'm a married bishop. But we can't have a fornicating clergy person. That would go against the sacramental theology again. As far as matrimony goes, I've talked about this so much, I don't think I need to get into it tonight. Suffice it to say, matrimony is about reproduction. If there's no reproduction, you can't really have matrimony. So that precludes that we cannot confer, cannot confer the sacrament of matrimony on a homosexual couple because of this. It's unfortunate. I know people are upset about that, but there's nothing we can do about it. Sacramental theology cannot be changed on this. It is what it is. All right, you just have to learn to live with it. There's a lot of things about the church that even I don't like, but I just learned to live with it. Okay, and this is one of those times. Sometimes there's things that just go against what you personally can accept. I'm going to get into one of those shortly. The Roman Catholic Church has a closed communion. We have an open communion. Okay, which means is if you're baptized, Christian, legitimately baptized, and you understand that Catholics believe and understand the Eucharist to be the body and blood, soul and divinity of Jesus Christ, then you are welcome to receive our communion, regardless of your denomination and regardless of whether or not you choose to convert and consider yourself Catholic. We feel that Christ wouldn't have denied himself to anybody. I'm not going to be the one that says, no, you can't have him. That's just not my right. Jesus gave himself to prostitutes, tax collectors, everything else, okay? He died for everyone's sins, not just the Catholics, and not just people that can understand about what these sacraments mean completely. I give them a little brief catechesis about it so they kind of understand, but I just let the relationship grow with Jesus. Some people don't like that about this church. Too bad. That's what we do here. We've talked so much about abortion. I'm not going to get into that one again. Just to suffice it to say, we are anti-abortion. We take a general pro-life stance on what we'd like to see happen in the world, but we don't get political about it, and we don't try to change legislation. Okay, and if a woman were to have an abortion and come to this church, we wouldn't excommunicate her or even declare her excommunicated. We would put her through, a pastoral care where, she would get whatever she would need. But this is where she needs the church the most. The last thing we need to do is kick her out. Okay, so that's our stance. We don't believe in, we don't accept, and we do not endorse the automatic excommunication that the Church of Rome puts towards abortion. We'd rather pastor them than exclude them. This is going to be a tough one for some of you, but I need to talk about it because this is one that created a lot of controversy in this church at the time that it was being established as a tradition. And that is the issue of right to die and euthanasia. So euthanasia, there's a difference between right to die and euthanasia. Okay, euthanasia is generally a doctor euthanizing someone for a multitude of various reasons, where right to die is that a person who is terminally ill can elect to end their suffering by having a medically assisted, I guess you could call it suicide, although I think that's a very provocative term that's not necessary here. A medically assisted you push the button, you get injected with the chemicals. The doctor doesn't do anything except make it safe for you. That's right to die. This church, now of course, the Church of Rome states in the Catechism, intentional euthanasia, whatever its forms or motives, is murder. They just flat out call it murder. So it's gravely contrary to the dignity of the human person and to the respect due to the living God, his creator. Okay, and rightfully so, if you consider it murder, that would be true. And we do consider euthanasia to be murder. We do not, however, have a ruling on right to die, with the exception of that you cannot be like, you're depressed and you just want to end it all. No, if a person is declared by a medical professional to be terminally ill, and in the course of their process, if whatever they elect treatment or whatever, find that they cannot take the pain and suffering of their illness anymore and want it to be expeditiously ended, the inevitable conclusion anyway, then if a person were to choose, assuming it's legal and available, a right to die option, we are not going to say, you committed suicide, you're going to hell now. That's not what this church is here to do. We're going to be there for them and give them prayers and no judgment. And I know that can be hard on some people, but again, the benefits of an esoteric church is that we see the internal relationship. And we understand that everyone's going to have a different relationship to death. And we know from Scripture that God is the God of the living as well as the dead. All right, so whether we're dealing with life or death, God is present, God is there, God knows what to do. And yeah, there might be, as Father Chris has said, some virtue in suffering. But I can tell you from my own experience, just having some very trivial things like bursitis can inflict pain upon the body that is beyond comprehension. That I can understand that if you are going through 6 or 7 months of this, a gun to your head might start looking pretty good. And I would rather see somebody take a medically safe path towards that inevitable conclusion, assuming they are terminally ill and not, just trying to get out of it, get out of life because they're not happy, but, truly terminally ill anyway, going to die anyway. I would rather them do a safe method that's going to reach the inevitable than for them to blow their heads off and leave it to their family to have to deal with the mess. Okay. I think that's the more morally responsible option, in my opinion. So if a person is at that critical point where they just can't take it anymore, I don't think it's for the church to say, no, you can't do that. That's suicide. That's murder. That's whatever. This church disagrees. But we're not going to say that if you do hold that that's murder, that's wrong either. We give you the power to decide for yourself what's right for you in your life. This is my libertarian side, I guess, coming through. But I fought hard for this one. And everyone else in the church was against it. I was the only one that said, no, euthanasia, yeah, throw that one out. But right to die, we need to preserve the dignity of a person. And if grandma isn't being treated with the same respect that, Fluffy was, I think that there's something wrong there. And it's like, if you keep a dog or a cat alive longer than, it's cruel. But my God, grandma, she's going to have to stick it out to the very freaking end. And maybe she can. Maybe grandma can. And if she can, great, do it. If you can't, then I would rather you make the best choice for you without having to go into that with, I'm going to hell now. I just don't see the value in that, okay? So this church doesn't put a judgment on that one, all right? And that's the non-judgmental, non-dogmatic aspect of the church, again, one of the benefits of esoteric Christianity. Okay, birth control was another one. Where do we stand on birth control? Well, the church, as you know, the Church of Rome is against it, all right? We feel, though, that a person's personal responsibility is paramount, particularly when it comes to their sexual activity, which we as the church don't want anything to do with. I don't want to be in your bedroom. All right. I am not your father confessor looking over every single sexual act you do and say, that's not okay. That's okay, but you can't do this one. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay. If you want to do some crazy stuff in that bedroom, that's up to you. I'm not going to say it's wrong. I'm not going to say it's right. All right. That's between you and your lover and maybe God. I mean, I'm not sure even he cares. All right. But the point is, I'm not going to use the church as a tool towards getting involved in decisions you make in this regard. And there are sometimes financial reasons or other reasons why a person might not advantageously be able to get pregnant at that particular time. As long as you're open to it through the course of your marriage, then I think it's fine. If you're using birth control throughout your entire marriage, that's problematic. But if you're saying not right now, but later, I don't see anything wrong with that. I know a lot of Roman Catholic priests that teach the same thing privately. They don't do it publicly so much, but they do agree with me on this one. So I don't endorse or condemn the use of contraceptions. I just say personal responsibility. And I think it's a hell of a lot better than abortion. All right, masturbation is another one. Nothing is worse than when you get a young teenager, maybe 12 or 13, coming into your confessional and tears rolling and saying, I've masturbated or whatever. And I mean, I've heard this so much throughout my life, all throughout my pastoral care. It's a common thing that I hear all the time. And I've known confessors that, you're in mortal sin. You got to go, we got to absolve you of this, and you can never do it again. Again, all right. Most people have figured this out by the age of 4 or 5. It's something everyone's done. Even if you don't want to admit to it, I guarantee you, in some capacity, you've figured it out at some point in your life. Because you know what? There's something called it's natural. And this is not something that is necessarily harmful unless it starts turning into some kind of distortion where now they don't know how to have proper relationships with the opposite sex, or, maybe it leads to some kind of pornography addiction. That's another matter. I'm not saying that that's okay, but what I am saying is it's very unhealthy to not engage sexually because you can have medical problems over time if you withhold for so long. Particularly men. Women too, but it's more important for men, honestly, because there can be blockages and other kinds of things that happen. Although the church will say, the nocturnal emissions take care of that. Not always, and so again, this is biological, this is scientific, it is not moral, unless it turns into like I said, you're getting an unhealthy relationship with pornography and you're not relating to your spouse anymore. That's a different matter. So we don't have a statement on that one except to just be like, it's natural and just move on with your life, okay? If you want absolution, I'll give you what absolution that you might need, but, I'm not going to go around telling people they're going to hell for this. Extramarital relationships among the laity. Fornication is a problem. It's a problem in the Church of Rome. It's a problem in the Nicholean Church. No difference really there. Extra ecclesiam nulla salus, that means that there's no salvation outside the Catholic Church. We actually kind of agree with that to the degree that we believe that the love and grace of God is present in all religions, and so therefore the Catholic Church is all of us, whether we are officially Catholic or not, and so therefore we feel, just as the Church says, we talked about this last week, that there is, anybody outside of in any religion can receive salvation through the truth of their own religion, albeit imperfectly. Let me close out here with our soteriology. I don't want to get into, there's more things here. Female clergy. We don't really have female clergy except for the deaconess, but it's not holy orders. We do not confer holy orders on females, but we do have the minor orders, and that includes also the deaconess. So it's not the same as a deacon. It's not a sacramental office, but it is a ministerial office that a woman in our church can hold. I just want to mention that. Our soteriology, though, and I mentioned this earlier, people could get a little bit upset about this, is that remember how Protestants have sola fide, right? They say, you just need faith alone. It's just faith in Jesus. I believe that Jesus is my Lord and Savior. He died for my sins. That's it. That's what Protestants will teach. A lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. Evangelicals will definitely teach this. The Catholic and Orthodox churches expand on this and say, no, it's not just faith. You need works. St. James makes it clear. So you have faith, which is pistis in Greek. You have works, which is erga, okay? And then you have, the relationship between the two, which is that through faith, you then come to understand your obligation to the church, and that there is a work that needs to be done. Jesus talks about, by their fruits you shall know them. And this is why St. James says that faith without works is dead. So therefore, Orthodox and Catholics teach that to attain salvation, you need faith is the door through which you eventually come to the maturity of Christianity through your works. But you need to actually do good things. You need to actually live the life of Christ in order to actually justify the fact that you really do have the faith that you claim that you have. So ultimately, yeah, it's true that you can't earn it. You can't earn salvation. It's not like you can work your way through salvation. You have to have the faith. It's the only way to get the grace. But unless you actually use the faith, then you don't get the salvation. We take it one step further. We say you also need epignosis, which is the fitting upon of the specific kind of knowledge that can only come through an experiential relationship with Christ. And you might say, well, Bishop, wait, what does that mean, that I need to understand Jesus to go to heaven? Not really. What it means is you can understand intellectually that Jesus died for your sins on the cross. You can understand that. Anybody can. The devil understands that. So does that make him a Christian? Does that mean he's saved now because he gets it? He believes that Jesus died for everyone's sins? No, that does not mean that. What it means is you can intellectually understand something, but not know it. Same thing goes with the works. You can be like, I understand that Jesus died for my sins. He wants me to be a good person. I can get behind the erga. I can do the works. I'll go ahead and do the works. But if you don't actually have the relationship with Jesus, then guess what? Works without epignosis is dead. Because you have to experience God. You have to have the relationship with him to truly enter into the perfection of the kingdom. Now, you might say, but why doesn't the Catholic Church teach this if it's true? It does teach this. It just doesn't go into it with that understanding. We're not really teaching anything different because all of this experiential aspect of how God comes to us through this knowing that happens when we participate in the life of the church, it's automatic. So the church doesn't really feel it needs to be discussed because it's like it's automatic. If you have the faith and you do the works, you're going to automatically get the epignosis. But the problem is, in the field, I've met one too many Christians that did the faith, did the works, didn't understand shit. All right. And so that's because they're not living they're not actually participating in the life of the church. They're doing the rote memorizations, but they're not actually living the life and they don't know how to feel it. And so our church is about feeling it. My gosh, I did go over the 20 minutes I tried. I did the whole segment. I'm sorry. But we'll have a whole hour now to digest all of this. So we're gonna take our next break, and when we come back, April and Father Chris will join us again on the panel, Jamie and myself, and we're gonna talk about this. What do you guys think? Tell us when we come back.
thousand different futures. Now I'm staring down the one that finally came. You asked me softly if the road would still remember all the footsteps that we carved into its spine. I held my breath, but I never got to answer, 'cause the truth was just too heavy to define. There's a last door that somebody has to close, and the last tear that somebody has to show. There's a peace that feels a lot like letting go, and I swear I never wanted you to know, but I chose it anyway. God, I chose it anyway. The morning came without a hint of consolation, just the quiet of a bed with only sheets. I heard your laughter bleeding through the conversation of a ghost I never got the chance to meet. There was a letter in the drawer you must have written, every word a tiny monument to grace. But half the ink was smeared by things you never mentioned, and I felt every silence on my face. There's a last door that somebody has to close, and a last tear that somebody has to show. There's a peace that feels a lot like letting go, and I swear I never wanted you to know, but I chose it anyway. God, I chose it anyway. Maybe mercy isn't gentle, maybe mercy leaves a stain, maybe loving someone deeply means you carry all their pain. I keep seeing all the futures that we buried in the spring, how the hardest part of loving is the ending of the thing. There's a last door that somebody has to close, and the last breath that somebody has to hold. There's a quiet that feels colder than the snow, and I swear I never wanted you to know, but I chose it anyway. Yeah, I chose it anyway. If forgiveness has a voice, I hope it sings, and if heaven has a light, I hope it brings something warm for you, 'cause I'm still walking through every shadow of the things I couldn't save.
Welcome back, everyone, to the third and final hour of Vestiges After Dark this season. It's been a great season, and hopefully you've enjoyed today's presentation on esoteric Christianity in practice. I mean, I could have done one on just the theology, but I thought you'd get more out of it by understanding how a church like ours actually applies it, and give you some kind of understanding as to the very nature of the internal Christ. How we find Christ inside us, because he is there. He's outside us too, of course, but there's a transcendent aspect as well as an internal one. So, we, I think, need to always keep that in mind as we approach any Christianity, whichever denomination you practice. We're not that different from the Church of Rome. We really aren't. Hopefully this show helped you to understand that. When we come back, your questions and discussion from the panel. Don't go away. Calling in from the 505 area code in northwestern New Mexico. Hello, you're on the air with Vestiges After Dark.
Bishop, this is Val.
Hey, Val,
Hey,
how's
Val.
it going? It's always good to hear from you. She's Moosh, everyone, in the chat, one of our fantastic moderators and very much an appreciated part of our church.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for calling in. What's your question or comment?
Well, okay. Now, I'm Eastern Orthodox,
Yes.
but I love Holy Nicholean Church because I feel at home there. It's that blend that you offer, and I feel so comfortable there. But I notice differences between the Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox that I'm not quite clear on. And one of those is a topic I discussed with Paula, and that's regarding the rosary. I didn't grow up with the rosary, and I don't quite understand it. But I noticed that you had said, well, it's really beneficial, but I don't understand if it's something I should learn. And the other question would be that the cross is made different. We hold our fingers in a certain position. That's what I was taught. And I noticed that most Catholics do it the opposite, and they do it in a really lax way. Like they just their hands kind of tap their head or something. And I don't understand, when did this happen? I mean, how if we were one at one time before the split, how did this happen?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Let's get to that one first because it's a somewhat easier one to answer. It goes back to very early. I'd say the first, the change, it's really hard to pinpoint it. It's somewhere, though, around 400 or 500 where there were marked differences between how one crosses in the western part of the empire versus the east. The crossing to the right is older. It's actually older. To the right hand of God is how it was done. And as you said, that you hold the fingers differently. So in the East, and this is what we do in the Nicholean Church, we cross to the right. we have you put the three fingers together at the top, and then the two fingers internal, which is the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which is the three, and then the two fingers internal is the two natures of Christ, fully man and fully God, and then it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit to the right shoulder, and then across to the left. In the West, it's usually an open hand, and then they cross to the left first, and then to the right. Both are valid. There's not one that's an invalid way of doing it. It definitely could seem lax in the sense that it doesn't have the same theological symbology, but that just is par for the I almost said par for the cross, par for the course with Orthodoxy, because everything in Orthodoxy has layer upon layer of symbolic meaning, whereas in the East, being a more legalistic approach to the religion, I think kind of simplifies those aspects. They get really complex when it comes to explanations, but they get more, I guess you could say, just a little bit more relaxed in every other aspect of it, which is why, some Orthodox people can go to a Roman Catholic Mass, and depending upon the parish that they go to, might have a less than stellar experience there, because it might seem not as people aren't as into it as much. It might feel a little bit shallow and maybe a little transparent in places that the rich mystical tradition of Orthodoxy maintains very well. And so that's the difference. And because the Nicholean Church is actually a blend between East and West, we, of course, use an iconostasis. Our altar is cubical in shape. It's not a rectangular. We face away from the congregation. The Roman Church turned it around. There's elements. Obviously, our censer is an Eastern censer that we use. The bells, and during when it's not Lent, that kind of thing. So that's what it is. But both are valid ways of doing the sign of the cross. It's not as though they're getting less.
If I may, you've actually described where esoteric and exoteric intersect.
Oh, here we go. Okay, let's tie it into the subject. That's great. Yeah, let's do it.
Because the esoteric or the inner in making the sign of the cross, the inner contemplative tradition is in both. It doesn't matter East or West. The context is saying I'm entering into an inner focus on Jesus Christ.
Yes.
On the Holy Trinity, on the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
So that's the esoteric action. The exoteric action is physically making the sign. Now, if either church, and by the way they don't, if either church said, "Oh, if you cross that way and not that way, then dogmatically you're outside of the church and you're going to hell," that would. And they don't do that.
The church won't do that, but the congregants will. Because when I was when we were on Ghost Adventures and they saw me crossing to the right, they said, "See, he's not even a real bishop. He doesn't even know how to cross correctly." I mean, you wouldn't believe how many people said that to me on Twitter.
They're the same people who think an upside down cross is the sign of the devil instead of the sign of the
same thing. Yeah, same thing.
So, but you've got this interaction, and. Now, if we were ever saying that work saved you or didn't save you, then we'd be in complete agreement with the evangelicals. That work will not save you. If you cross yourself to the left or the right, it neither saves you nor condemns you. In fact, if you don't make the sign of the cross at all, it would make no difference to your salvation. I'm with you. The Eastern way of crossing yourself, I've kind of, because I was with the Eastern Church for a long time as well. Yeah. If I'm in a Western church after, just by convention, I want to. No one cares, but I want to do what other people are doing, so I'm not there. People don't think I'm making a spectacle of myself, But
certainly, sure, yeah.
But it does make more sense the Eastern way, because it also it mirrors the blessing that the priest or bishop gives to the congregation. So the idea is that hands follow the direction of the blessing priest or bishop. So, but you're right. The answer is no one knows why it swapped over in the West.
I think it's regional. I think it was just regional habit.
I think so too. Yep. I think in the British Isles they were crossing themselves what we now call the Eastern way for a lot longer. I think that probably persisted until after 1066.
Interesting.
But yeah, the answer is it's a convention, and if you walked into a Western church and didn't make the sign of the cross, likely no one would notice. But because when you enter an Eastern church, either by the door or in the center, there's an icon that that the norm is to go and venerate the icon, and therefore you make the sign of the cross 3 times.
Yeah. In the narthex, the narthex,
Then it's much more likely to be noticed. But of course, both churches would say, if the priest or bishop would say, you're not there to be inspecting the piety or religious observance of the people in the congregation. You're there to work out your own salvation in fear and trembling.
Yeah, I like that. And to the second part, the first part of your question, I guess you could say, was about the rosary. Yeah, this is not something that is practiced in Eastern Orthodoxy.
It doesn't have to be practiced anywhere.
No, it's not a requirement at all. It's a tradition that is really mostly a private tradition, although there are churches that will sometimes do it after the Mass, but it is actually forbidden to do during the Mass.
Shouldn't do it.
It's forbidden to do during the Mass, and I kind of agree that it kind of distracts from it. It is a personal observation that you can do. Orthodoxy has their own version of it, which is the Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, and you can use beads for that too. So it's really just a way of suspending your rational brain so that you can lose yourself into the prayer and more easily open yourself up to God. And that's really all that kind of meditative prayer is about. It's not about the repetitions. It's about doing something that's prayerful that doesn't require conscious thought, so that part of your brain can sort of take a rest and the more internal aspects of your spirituality can come out, and you can do it.
It's really good for people with an ADHD brain.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
because it gives you something to do, But also, I always push back on repetitive prayer. It's a Protestant talking point. You can never say the same prayer twice because it's a new moment in time.
There you go. That's one way to look at it.
And no Protestant says, "Well, I told my wife I loved her when I met her, so I don't need to do it again."
Well, what about how they end it with everything in Jesus' name? It's like, what, Jesus doesn't, he needs to hear that every single time?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And also the word just.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just wanna.
Yeah.
Why not say Hail Mary?
Yeah, there you go. It's a little bit better. So, no, I don't think it's something that you have to learn, Val, unless you're interested in it. And it's something that you can very easily pick up to see if you like it, if it's a type of prayer that speaks to you.
I should say I do value it and I do pray it. That's why I said you don't have to say it.
Yeah.
Or, but I actually love it.
But I mean, the Eastern version is to just do the Jesus prayer, which is a part of the hesychasm tradition of, it leads to theosis. So in a way, you already have your own version of it. It's just not focused in that way. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, and even in the Church of Rome, there's the Chaplet of St. Michael. There's the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. You see us do the Chaplet of Divine Mercy on every Good Friday. We actually integrate that into our Good Friday service, because actually the Good Friday service has sections in the rubric where you're allowed to kind of just do whatever observances feel right, because it's not a mass. It's just a more formal type of open liturgy, really. So there's different churches will be doing different things.
Well, for Val, it's a pre-sanctified liturgy. That's what they call it.
Yeah, pre-sanctified.
Which came from the West, and yet ironically, there's only one surviving in the West, which is Good Friday.
Good Friday,
and the Eastern Church has many pre-sanctified
gifts. That's true. Yeah,
they came from the West.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting how that works, but I hope that answers your question, fella. Did it?
It does. And it makes me feel better that I don't have to feel I fit in, because I already know that prayer.
Yeah.
So I guess that's suffice, and I won't worry about it. But sometimes I think about the differences as I'm meeting people through the church. And, I mean, I kind of want to fit in, but I already fit in. I know I do. And, I love the church, and I love the work you guys do. Bless you.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that means a lot. And I mean, this church would not be the same without you and the contributions you make in terms of all your, being at every Mass and being the moderator at all these shows. I know that's a time commitment. We couldn't do what we do without you, at least not well, because we can't always be looking at the chat when all of us have a role at Mass. So, we're really grateful for everything that you do.
And Val,
Paula and everyone else.
I have a prayer rope, and I love the Jesus prayer. I use it all
I do
the time.
too.
Yeah, do the Jesus prayer too. I mean, that would be, that's more of an Orthodox way of doing that same kind of prayer. Will have the same effect. But if you want to try the Rosary, that's always open. There's but like Father Chris said, not a requirement.
I'm sure Paula is bringing the Rosary when we come see you.
Okay.
So I will probably observe this.
All right. Well, we can
class.
try it. We can try it when you guys come out to the retreat house. Yeah.
There's nothing in it that's hostile to Orthodoxy. Nothing at all. Like there's nothing that the Orthodox would object to.
There's a mystery, the mystery of the Assumption. They don't get the Dormition.
Maybe. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And there's the Immaculate Conception too. But these are things that you can just look at them from the Orthodox vantage point, because you do have the Dormition, and it's not that different from the Assumption. It really isn't. It really isn't. These are just kind of little things that theologians like to argue about because they have nothing better to do.
The Church didn't schism over that.
No, they certainly
No.
didn't. No, certainly wasn't that. But thanks so much for calling in, Val. We appreciate it.
Well, and thanks for your time. Okay, letting you go.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Val.
Bye-bye. If you got a question rather, and want to call in, comment, story, anything, 207-544-1983. That's 207-544-1983. I have it on the screen for anyone that would like to call in and ask your questions or tell us your stories. I went through a lot in the last segment very quickly. There was so much that I could have said about all of those points, and there were points I didn't even really have time to get to. But I think that was a good sort of preparatory introduction to what esoteric Christianity looks like as a Nicholean tradition, because it's not a Gnostic tradition. We're not Gnostics. We talk about gnosis, but only in the same sense that the New Testament uses the word. We don't use it in the Gnosticism sense. We don't believe in the demiurge, and we're not trying to escape the evils of the physical world. There's transcendence there, but we also understand that creation is sacred.
Am I right in thinking, because especially the first half of what you were saying, I didn't see any distinction between what the Roman Catholic Church actually teaches. See,
Yeah.
I do want to draw a distinction,
Yeah.
which is what the Roman Catholic Church actually teaches, as opposed to what people think it teaches.
Yeah.
and what people badly teach.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're three different concepts.
Yeah.
And like I said about a different topic, a priest is just a priest. A bishop is just a bishop. So, not everything that a bishop and priest teaches is necessarily solidly based on what the Roman Catholic Church teaches. It should be, or is sometimes explained in a way that we think we've communicated what the Church teaches, but what you've heard is something different, right?
Yeah.
And so, Fulton Sheen, one of his famous things was to say, there's no one on earth that objects to what the Catholic Church teaches. There are many people that object to what they think the Catholic Church teaches.
Yeah.
That was his kind of way of saying the same thing. But am I right in saying that by foregrounding that you're an esoteric Catholic Church, what you're saying is that, because I said that the opposite is exoteric, right? So you've got the structural outward interactions that are like the liturgies and all of that is sort of the exoteric. Esoteric is the inner life. All of these exist within the Church, St. John of the Cross, the contemplative tradition. But what you're saying is that this church places greater emphasis on the inner life. I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way. We place a greater emphasis on, or foreground, the inner journey, partly in response to the fact that there's been too much focus on the externalities.
Yeah, that's a very accurate and very, I would say, enlightened way of putting it, because I really couldn't have said it better myself, and I hope that
was
came...
definitely a Father Yates response.
Well,
Well done, Father. Well done.
I hope it came across in the last hour that this is really what we're all about, because I think people think that it's some kind of strange Gnostic church or something.
The word cult got thrown around when I first came on board. And I'm like,
it
what?
still gets
Really?
thrown around from time to time.
All churches are cults.
Yeah,
churches
in
are
the
cults.
in the actual definition of cult, not the modern vernacular.
Oh, there's a picture
Indeed.
we had the religious order, of the with the nuns, and we had, Sister Mary Joan back then, and Tracy was Sister Maximilian, when everyone was in the
Order of the Seven Archangels.
The Order of Seven Archangels. We had a picture of all of when the order was at its largest. We had a picture with me and all the nuns, and the first comment on on that being posted was, "See, I told you it's a cult. Those are all his women." And I mean, I'm not kidding. They really said this, and they really thought.
More energy than I have.
Yeah.
It's like, really, guys, really read the room.
I mean, please, but that was what was said, and so there is this belief that because there is this belief that because we are an esoteric church, that this means that we're into some weird shit. And I understand. Look, esoteric.
I mean, we are into some weird shit, but it's good weird shit.
Yeah, and there's a difference between the weird shit that we talk about being doctrine in a church, which it is not here, and being philosophically open and speculative and
We're
intellectual.
Explorers.
Yes, it is.
We're inner explorers.
That's a very good way to put it. It is.
As I was listening to you, I was thinking, what's the Jungian archetype for what you're describing? And it's the wanderer, right?
Yeah.
Now, and this is where you did foreground that the word. You're using the word dogmatic in a particular way, which I accept, and you even said that I use it in its more classical sense, which is also okay, right?
Yeah, sure. And you got to make that distinction. We do. We have to make that distinction.
Yeah, and I think that's helpful because you're right. Most people listening to the show just think a dogmatic church means a finger wagging church, right?
Yeah.
But whereas the true meaning of the word dogma, I'm really not trying to recover the word or play semantics. I think it's pointless, but. Because I think what you described is helpful and good. But even Jung himself, with the Wanderer, even though Jung was sort of skeptical about the dogmatic claims of the church, he said, essentially, you have to have the dogmatic claims in order to be the Wanderer, right? So psychologically, the only safe way to do that is to... So in other words, you need dogma in order to be the wanderer. I mean, it's a bit like if you're making music. I'm a musician. I studied music, classical and rock and all the rest of it. There's structure to music, right? But the structure isn't there to impose restrictions on it. It's there as a means by which you can then do something creative. So, rather than a blank canvas, you have a stave and you have, a form and you have these sorts of and harmony and the way harmonies work together. And rather than being a restriction on your creativity, it actually enables your creativity.
That's correct.
Like,
I think
if you could spell, you could do poetry,
I think one way that we can look at it, I can give you a very simple way. I've said this before, and I could have said it last hour, but, it still very much applies to what we're talking about. In a dogmatic church, in the context that I'm using it, it is very problematic if for a Christian in such a church, so let's say the Church of Rome in this context, it would be very problematic if some irrefutable proof came along that proved without any question, no one could doubt it. I don't know if that could even be possible, but let's just pretend it is. Maybe someone invents a time machine or something so we can go back and see what really happened. That Jesus did not exist and that he was just a story that was told, like any of the other mythologies that exist in the world. Okay, so let's just say that that's the case, okay? That would be very problematic for a dogmatic church with a dogmatic congregation, because if Jesus is not a historical person that did the things that the Gospels say, well, then nothing really happened and nothing means anything. But see, in an esoteric church that is non-dogmatic about these things, it wouldn't matter one bit, because we understand in the way that we approach theology is that whether Jesus was a historical person or not, which we do believe he was, by the way, and we do believe he did the things historically that the Gospels record, that's not in dispute.
You'd have to in order. I mean, well, actually, it's not only not in dispute. by definition, you can't say what you're going to say unless you do believe that.
Well, that's true. But if it were to come out that it didn't happen, it wouldn't change anything, because the power of Christ is already present within the events of what we experience through the gospel and the sacramental participation that we get to engage with as Catholics. So in the sense for us,
that's the definition of what is true.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yes. In other words,
historically factual, let's say that. Let's just say if it came out that it's not, it was historically false, that these things did not occur, it would not change anything for us.
I think you're describing the classical truism. It's true that the opposite of faith, the opposite of faith is certainty, and yes. I agree with that.
Yes.
But here, it's also, and this is where I think this is a healthy dogmatic approach as opposed to what you're rightly condemning, is to say that it's not that when the church says this is true, it's saying it's exhausted all mystery, or it's got the exact definition of everything that's going on.
Yes.
But what it says is that there are truths that have been revealed and defined, and once they've been revealed and defined, we don't revise downward. So although we can enter into mystery, we don't go backwards. We we go upwards.
Yes.
And whereas certainty is the opposite of faith, humility and certainty are not opposites. So I think the healthy dogmatism of what I know that the actual church teaches, as opposed to what's received or past, what people have experienced. So I'm not doubting people's horrible experiences of interactions with the church. That's a different thing altogether. That's human fallibility and sin.
Yeah.
But it's not as though the magisterium, and you actually touched on this, the magisterium doesn't say, right, here's all these truths, we're going to beat you over the head with them. It's the opposite of that. It's saying these are the truths that have been revealed to us, which we hold in all humility, and therefore it's from the true approach of the Catholic is to say it's from a position of humility that I beg you to consider this revealed truth of God, like babies in the womb are precious.
Yeah.
Whereas the finger wagging approach is, and this is abused by Catholics to say, well, the Catholic Church teaches this, so you're an evil whatever. That is a misuse and an abuse of the deposit of faith that the magisterium holds. It's not to be wielded as a cudgel.
No, it shouldn't be a
weapon.
weapon.
To be held in all humility to win souls for Christ.
Nothing in religion.
It's a love song.
It is. Nothing in religion, nothing in the church should be used as a weapon against another person. A weapon against evil, yes, but not against people. And not against people who do evil things, even. I mean, that's the difference.
Bad ideas, yes.
Yeah. Bad ideas, yes, ideas, but not people. Not individuals.
People.
Yeah. And unfortunately, what happens is it becomes an attack on people. Calling in from the 208 area code, which covers the state of Idaho, I believe. Hello, you are on the air with Vestiges After Dark.
Hi, Bishop Bryan and Jamie. I just had to call in. It's Paula.
Oh, Paula.
Hey,
hello.
Paula.
How
I
you
was
doing?
like,
Yeah.
Idaho, that's Paula.
I thought since Bell got in on it, Father Chris is cracking me up over here.
Yeah, he's
I really lost it.
He's a regular comedian for us.
I mean,
he's really. I just kind of wanted to make a comment because I feel like, and I am biased. I mean, I'll admit it. I'm biased towards this church, but I am very faithful with the local church that we go to. And I think that one of the difficulties that my son and my husband and I have had in serving and being a part of the local church here is when you talk to them and you try to explain, for instance, you all know, and for now the people listening, we are planning on a trip with Moosh to come out and visit the retreat center and meet y'all in person and be able to attend a mass.
I mean, people,
Jamie.
some Idaho potatoes.
He's making more jokes, Paul. He's making more jokes there.
I'm a Texan now. I'm a Texan now, Father Chris. That Idaho's in the past.
Okay.
Now she can bring barbecue.
That's right. Bring barbecue.
Yeah.
Bring steak.
I mean,
Lots of beef.
Yeah, no screwworms though. No
Oh yeah, no,
screwworms.
I don't want screw. Don't bring that with you.
But people, I mean, Jamie's right. People think we're nuts.
I know.
And, they'll say, well, that sounds like a cult. And I always think like it's a bad thing. You're saying it like it's a bad thing. If this is what that is to you, then, but it's, you hit it on the nail on the head. And I just wanted to make this point to the audience. This church, and Father Chris loses me. I feel like dumber than a doornail sometimes when he's speaking, but I'm always in awe.
I hope not.
Of what I learned. This church is more of an intellectual church. It wasn't until this church that I understood what I'm doing. All of the processes, the sacraments, Father Chris,
yeah.
all of those things that what they mean. And I noticed it, and my son says it to me all the time. He's like, Mom, people don't know what they're doing, and then they try to defend it. And then they end up in an argument, and we're just looking at them like, because I don't need to argue. I know.
Paul, I think you've hit the nail on the head. And look, let me help you synthesize it in terms of the local, your local parish and the church writ large. The church has different places for different purposes. So, like the parish church, this is one of the weaknesses, right? If what we expect is to go to our parish church on Sunday, and I ran parish churches for years, okay? If what we expect is to go to Mass on Sunday, Saturday night or Sunday, and receive everything we need to know about the faith, then it's the equivalent of going to Sunday school expected to get a university degree. It's not for that purpose. The purpose of the parish mass is actually to meet our obligations to God, to worship, to receive the Holy Communion and all of that. It's not the finishing school for Christianity. And the problem is we live in a very reduced period of the church's life, especially in the West, where we've allowed so many things to take over. Lots of studies have shown that people had far more spare time in medieval times when they were serfs than we do today, because they got all the holy days off, right? And they would have had time away from work to learn. And so, and the purpose of universities, by the way, was in fact to do what we're doing here. That was the purpose of the university, was to allow those men, let's be honest, men who had the capacity, the ability, the support in order to deepen knowledge of the faith, which is not the same as Gnosticism, but to understand the revealed faith. That's what universities were for. And now all of that is essentially lost. And so we have podcasts that are backfilling. Robert Barron, Bishop Robert Barron was onto this a long time ago. He set up Word on Fire when podcasts were not common. And so now the church writ large, the Holy See, the magisterium, they're not there to have the personal interaction with you. So they're there to set the sort of, I would say, the very low bar for the teachings of the church, the creeds, the how to respond to the macro social movements that go on. And you get that generally through the letters of the popes and the like. So the church exists at different levels for different purposes. And the sort of intellectual engagement that I think you're valuing in what goes on here, maybe the movement in the life of the church is that takes place on podcasts and on, in book groups and in study groups. That, when I ran churches, I was keen to set up cell groups so people could meet, and not everyone has to be a university professor. You have groups where you can sort of grow and deepen in, not just in faith in terms of the esoteric practice, but also in the knowledge, in fact, knowing what the church has distilled over the ages. So, it's asking a lot of a local church to be able to do all of that. And look, the truth is that churches are under-resourced with the people that fill them. Yeah, and so if we just go and we're passive receivers and sit on our bottoms on Sunday, expecting all this to be downloaded, like with the Borg waiting for the nanoprobes to be injected, and we can all become aware of this.
I think another part of the issue that Paul is speaking to, is that Christianity is a very complex religion. It's extremely far more complex than I think the average person can even begin to fathom. And that includes largely even those people who consider themselves good Christians and everything else. I don't think the average Christian can even begin to fathom how complex the religion is that they are practicing, even when they don't think they're practicing a religion, because they're like, oh, I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. I believe in the Bible. I'm a Bible Christian. It's like, well, no, that's a religion. It's Christianity is a religion. So you're just playing a semantics game to create a fight, which is really anti-intellectual in my opinion. But, that's another story. My issue here is that in times past, people spent a great deal more time on understanding these things because they took them far more seriously. So families like yours that still take them seriously will have a hard time finding other people that take them seriously so that you can share these ideas and have these kinds of discussions, because there's just not a whole lot of people out there that care enough. And that includes the so-called Christians that go to church every Sunday. I find that there is it's really, again, this is part of what we were talking about earlier with the legalism aspects that can sometimes creep into the Western church. It happens in the East too in different ways, but it's very prevalent in the West, is that they are just, as long as they meet their obligations, they're not going to go to hell. That's all they care about. And that's the worst reason for being a Christian, is that you don't want to go to hell. That should be the given. I mean, that's just a given. What you really should be concerned with is, how do you approach the perfection that you're called to, that you were created to be? And how is this achieved? By finding God, not just believing in him, but finding him and interacting with him, experiencing him. So you don't have to worry so much about maybe he doesn't exist. I need a lot more faith then, I guess, because I'm having trouble. Well, you wouldn't have trouble if you had those experiences. It's just you don't ever get to the point where you allow yourself to have them. So for families like yours that care about these things, you're going to feel like you're living in a vacuum, where there's just nothing, nowhere. I mean, it's just an abyss of people that just don't care, and no one knows how to talk about it. And as Father Chris said, the church rarely ever has the resources to be able to provide the kind of stimulation, education, what is necessary to truly understand the complexity of the faith, which in a lot of ways requires almost more than a doctorate degree. I mean, you almost need 2 doctorates just to get started in this kind of discipline, and that doesn't bode well for casual conversation and discussion. And then, of course, that's not to mention that with social media, you have a bunch of people now talking about things that they think they understand and teaching as if they're authorities when they're not.
They're clueless.
And they're clueless. And you see that. And that's the...
And also, people who like, it's all nonsense. Like, why are you interacting with us then? Like, why are you watching?
I know.
Why are you interested?
I asked that question. I asked that question last week. Somebody said something hostile about one of the shorts on one of the episodes we did recently. And I said, why are you, they had this long paragraph about all these things that Catholicism got wrong, and how, the Pope's not this and Jesus is not that. And I came back and I said, if you feel this way, why are you commenting on a Catholic channel about a Catholic show with this attitude? And if you were unless
relevant to you as you think,
exactly. Unless you're this is what I said. I said it just like this. Mm-hmm. Unless you're some kind of authority in religion, which I seriously doubt, because you wouldn't be presenting like an asshole like you are right now. And that's exactly how I said it to him. I don't pull punches with that kind of thing, because if you're going to come to my home and piss all over the floors, well, we're going to have some words about that, and they're not going to be kind words, because you've already set the stage for what you want, the kind of interaction you're looking for. So all I want to know is why, because clearly you're no authority. Nobody here cares about what you have to say. So why do you watch this channel and leave a comment that's this long on it? It doesn't matter to anybody here, and you're no one. So just move on.
These are people that are looking for answers to questions they have, that they've never gotten an answer that satisfied what they think it should be.
Well, you said...
And like I said the other day with him, I said, he's been hurt and he's projecting.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he's doing.
They cannot get an answer, Jamie, because they don't want an answer.
They don't want to receive it.
An answer would... Well, if If you decide when you're free falling, you can be whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you can throw things out left, right, and center.
Yeah.
If you arrive at something, you have to defend something.
That's
and
right.
so I have this all the time, you know, with people on Twitter and what have you. Oh, you believe this, you believe that.
They
Oh,
try to
picking
get you with
holes
the
in
gotchas.
in what the church. And I'm like, you're only able to do that because we say what we believe. You know, you can operate in what you believe to be this floating nothingness, but in fact is entirely dependent upon the Christian gospel because you're a Western human being.
Right.
But you take ownership of nothing. So I can't criticize your moral structure because you don't claim one.
Right.
Now everyone does have a moral structure, and eventually, if you actually engage with a human being genuinely, it would reveal itself. But they're not being genuine. You know, and that's why I think no, I'm not going to entertain you by letting you watch me chew a bone. No thanks.
Well,
have your bone back. I don't want it. You know, good luck to you.
It's interesting that Paula, you said, you know, you asked or leave this comment here, because I would say that both April and Jamie both found this church and came to this church and have stayed with this church for the exact same reasons, that they're being nourished by the understanding, not so much not so much the data points. It's not so much about the data points. What it is that you're interested in the understanding, which is that third part of the soteriology that I went through in the last hour when I was talking about faith works in epignosis, that we need to have an experiential understanding. I'm not talking about gnosis and secret knowledge, not that shit.
No,
I'm talking about.
I agree, and I think all churches have failed at that.
They have.
You know, they've not kept so, and it's ironic that, you know, the sort of the Protestant Reformation happens in an intellectual environment. Like, you know, whether they're right or wrong, we can debate. But, you know, Luther, Calvin, Zwingli, these are characters who were intellectually engaged in faith, right?
Yes.
I think some are more right than others, but whatever. You know, but this was an intellectual pursuit. The printing press, read the Bible, study the scriptures. The whole essence, if you like, of the Reformation was about a greater intellectual engagement with the faith. And what's so weird is that not weird, because I think I can explain it, but we haven't got time now. But I'm writing a book about it. But since the 60s, I mean, you know, people blame the boomers. It's just, you know, it coincides with the 1960s. That's when you have the Second Vatican Council. It's also when you get the charismatic and emotionalist movements within Protestant churches. And ironically, we end up with this sort of anti-intellectual approach to faith. And I think that's what's left a massive hole for people who actually want to engage in what the church used to promote, which is faith-seeking understanding. And that's what we're engaged in here. And so of course it's going to attract people who are intellectually curious, and it's not about, you know, you got to have an IQ above 150 to be in, you know, to engage with this. I mean, thank God, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But you know, it's not about that. It's not about how many degrees you've got. It's about the intellectual curiosity that says, I want to know more about these things. I would encourage you, Paula, by the way, to talk to your parish priest about it. I'd say, look, you know, I gain loads of stuff from, you know, understanding more deeply the intellectual tradition of the church. Because, you know, a parish priest's job is impossible. What I used to try to do was plan ahead and divide homilies over the upcoming weeks, and think, right, okay, I've got to have some things that appeal to the PhDs in my congregation, which I had. I've got to have something that appeals to, you know, the mums, the dads, like, you know, you try and think who is here, the children, you know, and something. You can't do it in every homily. I think it's a bad idea to have a homily that tries to do all of that. But what you can do is plan over a cycle to say, actually, do you know what? Maybe this homily is going to go over the heads of some people, and that's okay. Our parish priest, you know, here does a really good job of that. Actually, I'm going to talk about some difficult words, but sometimes when a new thing's invented in the life, when God invents a new thing in life, we don't have any other words for it. So we're just going to have to, you know, the church invents new words, and the best thing is for us to try and explain what those words mean. it's an impossible job, but that's worthy of a conversation. That's the sort of thing parochial councils should be doing. Let's talk about how we can try and hit as many people as possible with
in a
everything
lot
the
of
church has
ways,
to
I would
offer.
say that the Church of Rome acts more like a Gnostic church than we do on our worst day. I mean, they really do, because it's so much of the wisdom is really held into the cloister. There is an underlying attitude amongst many of them, at least when I was involved in it many decades ago. But I do remember there was an underlying attitude that the common people don't understand, will never understand it. So it's just going to be confusing. Just keep it simple, keep it simple.
Or even worse, I'm going to withhold that so we've got special stuff.
It could be that too. I mean, sometimes that is
Even
the motive.
worse, so I can look cleverer than I am.
I was shocked at how different it
ego
was.
creeps in.
Yeah, I was shocked at how different the church was from the lens of the monastery versus what I was used to in the diocesan priesthood or the seminaries. It's a very different experience. Even in the religious orders and that do active work, it was still not what it was in the cloisters. So a very different type of experience, and it leads to a lot of a different range of attitude. But I want to say
I think
that
Paula can be a gift to her parish. I really do.
I think so. I mean, Paula, just in a way, God calls us. God
get 'em,
calls us
Tiger.
to go
Yep.
do strange things, and this might be yours. But I want to thank you, Paula, for calling in. Father Chris, thank you. April, thank you. Jamie, thank you.
Thank you.
Moosh, thank you also for calling in. And for all of you that joined us this evening on the season finale of Vestiges After Dark. It's been a wild ride this season, right? And next season, we will, try to keep it as entertaining. April and Brandon will be working to get some new guests for you in the fall. This summer, we'll have two specials as usual. That will be on one in July and one in August. The next show will air July 21st, where we will cover our next part of this theological series on the independent sacramental movement. And you'll understand a little more about how validity works, what it means to be valid but not licit, and why being licit doesn't matter as much as being valid. That's really the basis for the old Catholic Church, and you're going to learn about that a lot, and probably more than you want to know, in July. So make sure you tune into that. If you think I'm a fake bishop, if you think Father Chris is a fake priest, then you need to tune in, because you'll learn that you're foolish and you're stupid. We'll make you less stupid by watching this show, okay?
That's right.
It doesn't mean that stupid can't be fixed. I might insult you. I might call you stupid, but I only say it with the understanding that now that you know, you can do something about it, okay? Anyway, that's what's coming up this summer, okay? I want to thank everyone again for being with us this entire season. But until next time, I'll see you out there in the ether. God bless all of you.
Stay safe, everybody.